Although Lei Gong had shown the power of an iron fist, it was still not enough to watch Kraft's Dreamland armor, which had been updated so many times. You must know that with the combat power of this suit, Thanos' Kraft without Infinity Gauntlet can be beaten. A Thunder God with the power of an iron fist, even if he is 5 or 6 times stronger than Danny Rand, is just a stuff that can be suppressed with a backhand. Facing the aggressive Thunder King, Kraft just stretched out a palm and hit him with a gravitational wave, and then he pressed Lei Gong firmly on the ground and couldn't move. In the dream, a column Neelabis's original gravity ability Kraft is not available, but according to the ability he showed in the dream, it is not difficult to place a similar ability with other technologies. Whether it's the Force of Force magic or the gravity training room in the Dragon Ball world, or in other dream worlds, the technology of creating gravity is not uncommon. Kraft only needs to tidy up and optimize it to imitate the beast gods in the dream world. Kind of style. Give me Master Lei. Another disciple who came with Lei Gong, the blonde white man yelled and rushed towards Kraft with his fist raised. Although the appearance of the opponent was a little different from the Danny Rand that Kraft knew, most of it was that the future Iron Fist did not run away. Not to mention that he doesn't have the power of Iron Fist now. Even if he defeated Shou Lao and obtained the Iron Fist legacy, his strength would not be as strong as the Thunder King who was quickly dropped by Kraft, so it is impossible for Definite to pose any threat to Kraft. The same gravitational wave passed, and he and Lei Gong lay down on the ground together. The rest of Kunlunmen also wanted to rise up to resist, but unfortunately, in the face of Kraft's crushing strength, they couldn't beat a wave of wind and waves at all, and they were all crushed to the ground by gravity in the blink of an eye. Big dozens of people face Kraft's 5 body throwing, and the scene is magnificent. You already have such a powerful force, why are you still interested in the power of Iron Fist? A man wearing a black robe and most of his face hidden under his hood suddenly appeared beside Lei Gong. As you can see, Lei Gong's Iron Fist is also one of the best in the past. It is still not your one-to-one enemy, so the Iron Fist should not be a force worthy of attention to you. Master Jade Emperor. Lei Gong, who was lying on the ground, squeezed a few words between his teeth, allowing Kraft to confirm the identity of the man in the black robe. However, there is one thing to say, as for the other person's look, it is more appropriate to say that it is King Yama. This kind of concealed appearance, what a Jade Emperor. Waved his hand to lift the gravity wave on Lei Gong and others, Kraft put away the Dreamland armor and explained it to the so-called Jade Emperor. I'm just curious about the principle of the power of Iron Fist, and I want to study it. After all, the power I use belongs to the category of science and technology. I am still very curious about the power of yours that cannot be explained by science. Technology. The Jade Emperor's tone was full of exclamation. It's incredible that technology can achieve this level. After sighing, the Jade Emperor said to Kraft, I can agree to your request, but I want to remind you that before fighting with Shou Lao, she will ask you some questions and judge you based on your answers, and then decide whether to pass on the power of the Iron Fist to you. Huh. Kraft was taken aback for a moment. Don't you just have to defeat Shou Lao to get the Iron Fist inheritance? The Jade Emperor nodded. That's right, but do you really think that a human who has only learned more than 10 years of Kung Fu can defeat a dragon who doesn't know how many years he has lived? Shou Lao will follow your answer, to decide how much power to use. Indeed, this is more reasonable. For the Jade Emperor's explanation, Kraft agrees very much. He had been wondering before, how Danny Land was so weak that he defeated a legendary dragon with his bare hands. It turned out to be water. But Kraft didn't intend to give up. He felt that although he occasionally liked to engage in pranks, he was still good in nature and would surely pass the trial of Shou Lao. Seeing that Kraft still insisted on participating in the Iron Fist trial, the Jade Emperor did not intend to persuade him anymore. He waved back Lei Gong and other Kunlunmen, and led the Kraft brothers and sisters to a cave alone. Shou Lao is right below. Jade Emperor pointed to the dark cave and said to Kraft, you can only go alone during the trial. No problem. Kraft, who was carrying a lot of universal capsules on his body, naturally wouldn't worry about any traps inside. He squatted down and seriously exhorted Angela and Aurelie. You two are here to wait for me obediently, don't get into trouble. Definitely, if anyone who doesn't have long eyes comes to provoke you, then hit me back fiercely. Yes. Aurelie is the best. Just listen to what Aurelie said, and Kraft turned his gaze to Angela who was aside. Don't worry, brother, I will look at Aurelie. Angela definitely knows what Kraft is worried about. Although she favors Aurelie the most, she also knows the importance. With Angela's assurance, Kraft relaxed and walked into the cave. Different from what he observed from the outside, after entering the cave, Kraft found that it was not dark inside, but an unknown light from the surrounding walls. Although it was not very bright, it made Kraft, especially seeing the road ahead, is no problem. It's really amazing. Kraft looked around at this magical sight. If it were not for the wrong time, he would have wanted to open a laboratory here to analyze these stones and the magical light. Following the passage all the way down, after reaching the end of the passage, Kraft's eyes suddenly opened up. This is a huge amount of underground space. Because the light is slightly dim, Kraft can't visually inspect the file size of this space. So he took out a sound wave detector and took a picture of the surroundings. According to the feedback data, there is at least 3.5 football fields the size of a football field, with a height of hundreds of meters. Are you the tester this time? The old voice rang from the bottom of Kraft's heart, and with the strong vibration of the ground, a huge figure appeared in front of Kraft. This is a peculiar red dragon. She has the characteristics of an Eastern dragon and a Western dragon at the same time. The head is closer to the appearance of a Western dragon, but the body is a snake-shaped Eastern dragon. The long body is coiled together and is surrounded by a pair of huge amounts of batwing covered most of it, without revealing its claws, and I didn't know if it was hidden or not at all. This peculiar red dragon is naturally the immortal dragon responsible for inheriting the power of the Iron Fist Shou Lao. Shou Lao laid down her head with huge amounts of and stared at Kraft with scarlet eyes. What are the Jade Emperor and Lei Gong doing? Why did you choose a little devil like you who has never practiced before to participate in the trial? A small amount of sparks splashed out of Shou Lao's mouth, and she was very dissatisfied with the candidates for this trial. But after complaining, Shou Lao still asked Kraft according to the trial procedure. What's your purpose in becoming Iron Fist? Shou Lao's voice sounded from the bottom of Kraft's heart with an inexplicable force, and the mind gem hidden in Kraft's body flashed slightly, eliminating the peculiar force. Iron Fist? I didn't intend to be an Iron Fist. Kraft, who hadn't noticed the slight change, only felt a little dazed. He shook his head suspiciously before answering Shou Lao's question. I'm just curious about the magical power of Iron Fist, so I discussed with the people in Kunlun. I want to get some Iron Fist power from you, take it back and study it, and then someone else will inherit the name of Iron Fist. No. Shou Lao. What are the Jade Emperor and Lei Gong doing? How did you let the Jade Emperor let you in to participate in the Iron Fist trial? Shou Lao's head approached Kraft even more, and asked him with a 3-point doubt. For Shou Lao, whether it was Kunlun insiders who participated in the trial of Iron Fist is actually not that important. She has lived life and death for so many years, and she has already seen it very well. She would try the Iron Fist for Kunlun, only because Kunlun people provided her with food, and she was satisfied with Kunlun's environment in this pocket dimension, so she gave it in return. If Shou Lao is the kind of old and stubborn, then the blonde Iron Fist of the previous generation would not be able to pass her trial. Actually, it's nothing. Kraft grabbed his hair and talked about the process of coming to Kunlun with Shou Lao. You mean, you defeated Lei Gong by relying on the props made by yourself? Shou Lao became more interested in Kraft, and her body began to swim around Kraft. Interesting, so interesting. The voice that sounded in Kraft's heart became a little bit cheerful, and it would be tiresome to give the group of martial arts water and experience time and time again. So when Kraft was such an alien, Shou Lao's interest suddenly rose. But the procedure still has to go. Shou Lao's heart-questioning link is not a superficial effort, but to let the tester see his mind clearly, and thus determine the characteristics he exhibits after he obtains the power of the Iron Fist. It's just that every previous generation of Iron Fist was taught by Kunlun. Although the strength of the Iron Fist used is slightly different, the essential difference is not that big. So Shou Lao is also very curious, if Kraft gains the power of Iron Fist, what kind of different scenery will be shown? What is your purpose in pursuing the power of Iron Fist? Shou Lao's voice with special power rang from the bottom of Kraft's heart again, causing him to be in a slight trance. Now Kraft noticed the abnormality. He shook his head and did not answer Shou Lao's question. Instead, he looked up at Dragon in front of him and asked, "What did you do to me?" What? Shou Lao also discovered Kraft's special situation. You can actually resist my spiritual power. But in this case, the heart-questioning link cannot go on. After veteran Shou told himself the necessity of the heart-questioning session, Kraft was a little bit entangled. What if this old dragon is actually looking for excuses to plot against himself? Kraft knew that he had participated in the trial by unconventional means. I originally thought that the so-called heart-questioning link was a procedure, but I didn't expect it to be related to spiritual power. But to give up the trial like this, Kraft is definitely not reconciled. Wait a moment. After thinking about it for a while, Kraft took out a universal capsule and threw it on the ground, and a new Angela duplication appeared beside him. Angela duplication, who was standing still like a sculpture, became agile after blinking her eyes. In Shou Lao's eyes, it was as if the same statue had suddenly come to life. Brother, are you looking for me? Kraft took out the mind gem and handed it to Angela. This questioning part is a bit troublesome. You can keep this for me first. Mind gem. Angela naturally knew her. She was smart and immediately knew what Kraft meant. She nodded obediently, and then ran to the side with mind gem. Strange life. Although Shou Lao does not know what artificial intelligence is, he can see Angela's particularity. After sighing, she challenged Kraft for the third time. In fact, there is nothing special about the original question. It is basically asking why Kraft wants the power of Iron Fist and how to use the power of Iron Fist. And the spiritual power contained in Shou Lao's words did not have any effect on Kraft. It was used more as a check, which meant that even if Kraft lied, it didn't matter. Shou Lao would do it herself. Determination. But for Kraft, there is no need to lie at all, and his answer is simple, just curious and want to study. Very well, then, the next step is the formal trial. When the question was over, Shou Lao erected himself and asked condescendingly, "Are you ready?" This is the end. Just in case, Kraft took the mind gem back from Angela's hand, and then summoned the Dreamland battlesuit of the Beastmaster General, and punched both fists. Come on then, I haven't had a fight with the dragon yet. Shou Lao didn't do much nonsense. She let out a roar, and opened her mouth to spray a ball of flame at Kraft. Although the temperature of Shou Lao's Long Yan is much higher than the average flame temperature, it is nothing for the Dreamland armor. Kraft smashed the flame directly and rushed to the head of Shou Lao's huge amounts of. The fist hit her nose. The punch that could break the rock and pierce the steel plate only caused Shou Lao to tilt her head slightly, and then she swam in the cave with a dexterity that did not fit the huge body. Kraft fired dozens of energy cannons at Shou Lao, most of which were easily avoided by her, and occasionally a few that could not escape were also blocked by her with a pair of huge amounts of batwing. Ordinary energy cannons hit Shou Lao's wings, and they couldn't even cause damage from scratching the skin. What about the water? Kraft's face was black. Regardless of power and speed, Shou Lao's current defensive power, not to mention Danny Rand's delinquent boy, can't cause any damage to him even if he has the power of an Iron Fist now. So how much water did Shou Lao put in the first place to allow generations of Kunlun clans to get Iron Fist power from her? Kraft didn't understand what Shou Lao thought was that he would take the initiative to kill himself again, and then share his own strength. Perhaps it is the life habit of the immortal dragon to die and rebirth after a while? While Kraft speculated wildly, he shot gravitational waves at Shou Lao. With Shou Lao's huge body, it should be difficult to move under high gravity. However, the gravity wave that Kraft shot was like a stone cow entering the sea, and it did not affect Shou Lao at all. According to the feedback from the Dream battlesuit, neither the energy cannon nor the gravity wave actually fell on Shou Lao's body. Her body surface was always covered with a protective film similar to the power of an Iron Fist, and Kraft's attack was directly dissipated when it touched this protective film. It was the first punch that really fell on Shou Lao's body. Is the energy attack ineffective? Kraft took out a universal capsule and pressed the button. A mechanical spear appeared in Kraft's hands, but its workmanship was not delicate, and the overall style was rough but not rough. Just looking at the shape, it gave people a fierce feeling. A Stardy-style power spear. This is one of the Power Series weapons in a certain human empire fighting in the galaxy in the Dreamland. The main user is a genetic warrior named Astardi. Similar to the ghost agent of the Tyrone Empire, they also use something called psionics. Although they are not the same in essence, they all envy Kraft, who can't learn it. In addition to the psychic powers that make Kraft envy and hate, the power weapons in the Dream are also very amazing, but this technology is not regarded as the technology of the human empire, but a legacy product of a force called the Mechanical Gods. But Kraft was fortunate to have dreamed of their process of making power weapons. When power weapons are in use, the attack area such as sword blades or hammerheads will emit a vague blue energy field. This energy field can destroy the molecular bonds of matter, making these power weapons almost indestructible. Even if Shou Lao's outer shield can counteract energy attacks, the power spear is originally made of Kraft's optimized superalloy Z. The forging process of the spear blade is based on the creation of those martial arts and fairy tales. The sharp weapon of the magic weapon can even easily split Captain Steve's vibranium shield. With the activation of the power spear, the blade part of the spear lit up with a faint blue force field, and made a low buzzing sound. Kraft raised his power spear and aimed it at Shou Lao. Boom. Accompanied by a loud sound, Kraft held the power spear and slammed into Shou Lao. Probably he did not estimate the power of the spear in Kraft's hand. Shou Lao did not dodge at all. Then Kraft was stabbed in a pair. Ah! Shou Lao, who had a big hole in her body, let out a painful howl. She twisted her huge amounts of body, and the dragon blood of Da Peng was like rain, and it spread all over the cave. Angela silently took out a jar and began to collect the dragon blood spilled by Shou Lao. Shou Lao poked across, crossing Kraft to pursue the victory, made a bend in the air, and poked the power spear in his hand at the red dragon again. However, just when the power spear in Kraft's hand was about to pierce Shou Lao, a bright yellow light appeared on her body. The spear was about 10 centimeters away from Shou Lao, and it couldn't be stabbed alive. The buzzing sound of the power spear became a little messy because of overload. At the same time, the big hole in Shou Lao's body that was pierced by Kraft was also recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye, and it was intact in a short while, with no trace of scars visible. Gone. Kraft couldn't help swearing in his heart. He was sure that Shou Lao would never use these two tricks during the trials of other Iron Fists. Roar. Shou Lao's wings slammed out, shaking Kraft out, and then the light on his body gradually dimmed, and at the same time his body fell down. Okay, your trial has passed. What? Having just stabilized his figure, Kraft, who was about to summon the giant's cloak, was stunned. He originally thought that Shou Lao intended to deliberately prevent himself from passing the trial, so he used such exaggerated strength to fight himself. Even Kraft are already considering whether to pull out the mechanical forces in the universal capsule to kill the old man. Before, I was just happy to see Hunter, wanting to see how well your tech props can do, so I took a little bit more seriously. You really gave me a big surprise. Shou Lao explained to Kraft. But if you continue to fight like this cave can't last. I still like this place, so let's stop here. With that said, Shou Lao swam in front of Kraft, exposing his abdomen, and said to him, "Next, use your spear to cut me open from here, and then put my fists into my heart. Gain the inheritance of the power of the Iron Fist." As Shou Lao's attitude changed too quickly, Kraft didn't even know how to react for a while. But his performance was mistaken by Shou Lao as being unbearable. She smiled and comforted. "I am an immortal dragon. For me, death is just a rest, just like Phoenix Nirvana. This is actually right. It's good for me." Oh, as expected. Kraft raised his eyebrows, as he had guessed before. Death is just a normal physiological activity for Shou Lao, which is probably similar to cocooning or snake shed skin. Then he couldn't help asking. "Then your corpse after death. Can I get some materials and go back for research?" Ha 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 ha. Not only was Shou Lao not angry at Kraft's somewhat rude request, he laughed instead. "I'm afraid this will disappoint you. When I die, the body will slowly disappear. Even if I am alive, the scales and blood that fall from my body will disappear after a while. Turned into pure power and return to me." This. Kraft glanced at Angela, who had already collected the dragon blood and was asking her for credit on the channel, and showed an awkward smile. Because Shou Lao talked to Kraft directly by way of spiritual communication, Angela still doesn't know this information. No matter. Wait a moment to praise Angela, and then throw the dragon blood she collected into the corner, pretending to forget about it. In order to take care of his sister's mood, Kraft decided not to tell Angela the news. Withdrawing his gaze from Angela, Kraft raised the power spear in his hand and pierced it into the body of Shou Lao, who was completely irresistible. As Shou Lao's abdomen was cut open, a huge heart that was slowly beating inside was exposed. "Because you do not intend to inherit the name of Iron Fist, so I will not leave a tattoo exclusively for Iron Fist." Shou Lao, with his chest wide open, at the moment can still chat and laugh with Kraft casually. Kraft didn't know that there were tattoos. He didn't want to add some inexplicable patterns on his body. Naturally, he hoped that he would not get any tattoos on his body. So Kraft put away the dream armor, raised his hands, and plunged them into Shou Lao's heart. Well. A burning sensation came from both fists, but Kraft could still bear it, and at the same time he also felt a certain strange power, following his hands, into his body. After a while, the burning sensation on both fists and the transmission of energy gradually disappeared. Kraft pulled out his hands, only to see that there was still a faint yellow light on them, but it quickly extinguished. Ends. Roar. Is such an Iron Fist, you are really interesting. Shou Lao seemed to understand the characteristics of Kraft's power at the moment when Kraft gained the power of the Iron Fist, and she closed her eyes with a happy mood. Immediately afterwards, Shou Lao's huge body glowed, and with the passage of time, the light on her body became brighter and brighter. When the light on Shou Lao's body was so dazzling that she covered her whole body, forming a huge band of light, the light on her body shrank suddenly, and then it exploded into countless spots of light, floating towards the top of the cave, and then gradually sank into the dome of the cave. Roar. Closed roar and watched the bright ending of Shou Lao. Kraft exhaled a long stale air. Shou Lao, who deserves to be known as the immortal dragon, even if it's just a death that is so common to her, there is such a gorgeous pomp. Brother. Angela's depressed voice interrupted Kraft's emotion. The dragon blood I collected is gone. Angela held an empty jar with a puffed face, and looked unhappy. What? Kraft didn't expect that Shou Lao would be so dynamic after his death, and he accidentally made his sister depressed. He could only step forward and rub Angela's little head, and then comforted. It doesn't matter, anyway, the power of the Iron Fist is available, and the dragon blood is not important anymore. Then Kraft took Angela's little hand and was about to walk out. But Angela stood there and didn't move. Put away my body, otherwise she will be sad if Aurelie sees it. Angela said to Kraft very seriously. Although Kraft doesn't think that Aurelie's girl who has a lollipop can be silly and happy all day, she will feel sad because of this little thing, but his sisters are so in love with each other, he has no reason to stop it. Collecting Angela's mechanical duplication graciously, Kraft walked out of the trial cave alone. Brother. Aurelie is very good. Aurelie hopped up to meet him, showing off to Kraft as if he had done something remarkable. However, looking at the environment that hasn't changed much outside, Aurelie has indeed done some amazing things. Kraft reached out and touched Alal's little head, and praised sincerely, Alale is such a good boy. Yeah. I was praised again. The good boy Aurelie is so easy to be satisfied. It looks like you successfully passed the trial. The Jade Emperor wearing a black robe also walked up, and he looked at Kraft, who was unscathed, a little bit complicated in his heart. It was impossible for an inexplicable outsider to obtain the power of the Iron Fist so easily. Originally, he was expecting Shou Lao to let the other party retreat. Now it seems that Shou Lao should have chosen to treat him equally. Previously, because he was not sure to defeat Kraft, the Jade Emperor chose to hand him over to Shou Lao to solve it. However, Shou Lao not only did not embarrass Kraft, but also gave the opponent the power of the Iron Fist, and now he wants to win. The other party is even more difficult. I had known that I should take advantage of the other party's participation in the trial, kidnap his two sisters, and then force him to stay in Kunlun and take the responsibility of Iron Fist. The Jade Emperor thought with regret. The eyes were swept over Aurelie and Angela who were talking to Kraft not far away. The Jade Emperor assessed his success rate, and finally gave up this tempting idea. Snort. Good luck for you. When Kraft took Angela and Aurelie outside to play around for a while, and returned to the Hell's Kitchen, he found that earth-shaking changes had taken place here. As this. A zombie virus outbreak? Looking at the barbed wire, fences, and various simple trenches that can be seen everywhere in the Hell's Kitchen, Kraft's impression is that similar scenes will only appear in those doomsday dreams where a zombie crisis has erupted. It seems that another brother did it. Angela gave timely feedback. It turned out that after receiving Kraft's technical support, Wang Mian used 2 lightsabers to chop all the way from Hell Kitchen East Road to Hell Kitchen West Street, directly slaying all the ghosts and snakes in the Hell Kitchen. And when he was halfway through, the Punisher Frank also joined the team. With the addition of those hot weapons in Frank's hands, they could even storm the strongholds of major gangs and completely destroy them. In this way, the 2 kills turned the whole Hell's Kitchen upside down, and later even the official had to intervene. In the beginning, it was just the New York police who sent additional manpower to Hell's Kitchen and stepped up patrols. But in the face of an assassin who has not been able to drive a matchless assassin, and a former Marine Corps officer who is top-notch in the Army, there is no way for the New York police to take these 2 men without the leadership of Director George. Later, I didn't know how the gangs operated, and they actually invited America's military to enter the Hell's Kitchen to escort their industry. As a veteran, Frank naturally did not want to fight with his former comrades in arms, and although Wang Mian was incapable of killing, he was not arrogant enough to confront the entire official. So even though they both felt uneasy, they finally stopped the slaughter mode that was devastating and went into the dark again, and they found the military space and attacked the previous wave from time to time. At first, some of the gang leaders in Hell's Kitchen even began to abandon their businesses here and began to flee, but Wang Mian quietly touched them and stabbed them to death one by one. Without the protection of the military, they died faster. In the end, they thought of a good way to take the initiative to get themselves into prison. Just like Jin Bin, even though they have entered the prison, they are still able to manipulate the business on the black market through their contacts. As for whether the subordinates who did the work will be approached by the two murderers, it's not about their bosses. If it's a big deal, they will be replaced by an agent. It's just that those agents are not fools. When doing things, most of them are doing things in the wrong way, or even just quitting them. For a time, there were a large number of gangs disbanded in Hell's Kitchen. Only those large gangs that had a serious business could continue to survive, but their criminal activities were greatly reduced. It's just that there's never a shortage of guys in this world who want money and don't die. Although Wang Mian and Frank have killed many New York gangsters for a while, they can't give up those businesses that come with easy money. In addition, Wang Mian has only two people on this side, and occasionally encounters a daredevil who runs to do nosy. These gangs have gradually found a way to deal with these two killing gods. They come from the history of an ancient Eastern country. Time-honored tactics guerrilla. Although Wang Mian and Frank are still looking for the door from time to time, the business of those gangsters has slowly restarted. As long as the government continues to indulge or even support, then the gangs in Hell's Kitchen will not be able to kill them. When Kraft found Wang Mian, he said so plausibly. Apparently in this series of events, he realized the essence of Hell's Kitchen. Although Wang Mian had been retaliating against the gang before, in fact his revenge had already been completed. The two gangs that involved Wang Mian and his friends had already been smashed by homicide. The reason why Wang Mian continued to fight the gangs was that he didn't know what to do next. But now that he looks like this, he is no longer confused, and his eyes are firmer than ever. So, are you going to build the Assassin Brotherhood in America? Kraft looked at Wang Mian, who seemed to have found his way in life, and asked with a twitching corner of his mouth. I don't have the big aspirations of the predecessors. Wang Mian smiled and shook his head, and then replied seriously, I want to do my best to make the world more harmonious and fair. Alright. I didn't expect myself in the parallel world to be the kind of boring superhero just like Peter Parker. But Kraft respected Wang Mian's own choice and did not comment much. As a parallel spatiotemporal peer who is closer than his brother, Kraft decided to support another of his own business. He considered it and handed over some not-so-exaggerated equipment in his inventory to Wang Mian. By the way, clean up your personal space. Seeing Kraft taking out all the weird munitions one by one, it was Wang Mian's turn to twitch frantically. I just want to be an assassin. I don't plan to fight any world war. Huh. These are just some ordinary self-defense items. Kraft explained as he handed the universal capsule containing the Metal Slug series vehicle to Wang Mian. If you want to fight a world war, then I will give you Gundam and Space Battleship. Although I don't know what the Gundam in Kraft's mouth is, Wang Mian still understands the word Space Battleship. He covered his forehead and said, I think you must have some misunderstanding about the scale of the battle. It's always good to be prepared. Kraft also has his own reasons. Although Wang Mian's world seems to be low in combat power, in fact, it is the existence of Shou Lao, which can resist power, and the Kraft. The dimension of hell that has not been found so far. Therefore, it is not uncommon for any powerful enemies to appear, so it is necessary to give Wang Mian more props just in case. After listening to Kraft's reasoning, Wang Mian still felt that his just in case was too exaggerated, but it was all kindness from the parallel world peers. In the end, Wang Mian still gratefully received it. I dropped those things that may not be needed in my life. This is the last. Kraft held a fingernail file size and handed it over. Wang Mian had seen this delicate little thing. At the moment, there was exactly the same one behind his ear. Nano headphones? Didn't you give me one? Wang Mian nodded behind his ear and asked strangely. Oh, this is a new version. After putting the nano earphones into Wang Mian's hands, Kraft explained. I tried to analyze the space gem, and then used the energy on it to create a new version of earphones that can connect across parallel time and space. A forum dedicated to sending messages. I plan to send them one when I meet myself in the parallel world in the future. Seriously, I am even more envious of your dream of making magical props casually. Wang Mian sighed while putting on the new headphones. But why not make it into an instant chat tool? The forum is a bit outdated, right? I think so too. Kraft shrugged and said helplessly, but without the help of Time Gem, it is not easy to accurately locate the time of multiple parallel worlds. Real-time feedback is simply impossible. Let's use the forum first, and I'll talk about it later when I get the time gem. So there is no infinite gems in our world, right? Regarding the existence of infinite gems, Wang Mian naturally knew from Kraft's mouth a long time ago. He curled his lips and said, "It's really unfair everywhere. Even parallel worlds have high and low points. I didn't find it anyway, but your world is not as simple as it seems. This time I went to Kunlun and had a fight with the legendary dragon." Kraft enthusiastically called up the video of him fighting Shou Lao, and told Wang Mian of his experience during this time. After watching the battle between Kraft and Shou Lao, Wang Mian suddenly felt that the props he had given him before were necessary. Although Kraft basically has the upper hand in the video, Wang Mian will not underestimate Shou Lao because of this. The power, speed and defensive power displayed by this immortal dragon, no matter which Wang Mian has. Method. It's just that the parallel world's self is even more perverted. Wang Mian couldn't help but rejoice. It's great to have someone in the parallel world become a big boss. Sure enough, everything else is imaginary, you can only rely on yourself for everything. In the warehouse of the Feast Homeless Shelter, May Parker is sorting out the first aid supplies inside. Suddenly, there was a slight buzzing sound above her. May Parker raised her head and saw that a green oval light door was suddenly opened on the roof, and then a black-haired and yellow-skinned Asian teenager stepped out of it in a state of beckoning her head back. Damn. The teenager let out a startled roar, and fell straight from above to May Parker, followed by two younger girls rushing out of the green light door, almost at the same time. Arrived on the boy. Puff. The boy who was hit hard again bends his body, and then lies back on the ground again. Ah. Arayli, come down. We stepped on brother. The blonde little girl with startled roar jumped off the teenager's back, then reached out and pulled up another purple-haired little girl. The little girl with purple hair first straightened the glasses on the bridge of her nose, and then squatted to the side of the teenager, not knowing where she took out a small branch, and gently poked it on his head. Oh. Brother, are you okay? Also. Okay. Can't die. The young man took hold of his hit waist, and tremblingly got up from the ground. Oh, hello. The young man groaned and stood up, muttering in a language that May Parker could not understand. I missed my decision. I didn't expect to encounter this situation again. It seems that I have to observe the environment in the future. Come out. Although he could not understand what the teenager was saying, May Parker had heard similar language from Martin Lee and knew that it was Chinese. That, May Parker, who had been dumbfounded for a long time, recovered and asked, "Is there anything I can help?" Although the three children appear in a strange way, May Parker is not too guarded. She is a good old man who helps others, not to mention that the other party is not very old. Kraft, who only noticed someone next to him, turned his head and was stunned. Ha ha ha. It's Aunt May. However, Arayli would not be stunned. After seeing the faces of her acquaintances, she immediately stepped forward and called Roar. She is a good polite boy. Sorry, I seem to don't know you? Aunt May carefully identified the appearance of the three of them and made sure that she had never seen these children. What? Is it a world where only Peter is a fool? Kraft suddenly recalled the horror of being dominated by various Spider-Man. Not really, brother. Angela had already learned about the world through wireless intrusion at this time. This is the Feast Homeless Shelter, and Uncle Martin is there. There are also S.H.I.E.L.D. and Avengers. The Osborn group is also there, but their appearance has changed. Only the appearance of Uncle Martin and the Parker family has not changed. You know Martin. Although some did not understand what the blonde little girl was talking about, Aunt May noticed that she mentioned a person she knew, and reminiscent of the Chinese spoken by the boy before in his Asian appearance. Are you Martin's relatives? Ah, be it. Kraft scratched his head. He hadn't had time to get a detailed understanding of the world's intelligence, but since there was also Daddy Martin in this world, and his appearance hadn't changed much, it wouldn't be a problem to recognize this distant relative. But when she saw Aunt May's face with surprise and was about to find Martin Lee, Kraft grabbed her. Unlike the good old Aunt May, Daddy Martin has a hidden identity, and the world has not solved his sequelae by himself. He is probably still a murderous gang leader at this time. Wait for Aunt May. Martin Daddy in this world doesn't know me. Kraft thought for a while and decided to tell the truth to Aunt May. He called up the photos and videos that he had taken with Aunt May and the others as evidence, while telling her about his origins. In fact, even if those photos and videos were not there, Aunt May would believe Kraft's words, because the way they appeared, and the reaction when they saw themselves, can prove this from the side. In your world, is he still alive? That's great. Aunt May looked at the familiar face in the video with tears in her eyes. Having guessed how Uncle Ben in this world passed away, Kraft's mouth was flat, and he didn't know how to comfort Aunt May. But Aunt May recovered quickly by herself. She wiped the teardrops from the corner of her eyes, and then smiled and said to Kraft, "Thank you for bringing me this good news. I can know that there is a world where Ben and I have lived. It's very good, I'm already very satisfied." "It really is, Aunt May." Kraft sighed. "It would be better if he came earlier." "I think this topic is too heavy," and Aunt May took the initiative to talk about other things. "Although Martin has not become your adoptive father in this world, I think as long as I explain it clearly to him, he will be able to accept you as well." I'm afraid it won't work." Kraft glanced at Angela. She nodded her head and said, "I did find out the existence of the Devil Gang and Mr. Film, but the specific experiment has nothing to do with the Magia Gang. This world turned Uncle Martin into Mr. Film. The Osborne Group." "Huh. This is really..." Kraft sighed. "What about Green Goblin?" "Not found yet." Wait, what are you talking about?" The more Aunt May listened, the more things went wrong, and she interrupted the conversation between the brothers and sisters. So Kraft could only explain to her first. Although the culprits seem to be different, Martin's father in the two worlds has a different personality because of human experiments. That personality is called Mr. Negative. My God, listening to Kraft's narration in the black and white Martin Lee in the video he posted, Aunt May subconsciously stretched out her hand to cover her mouth and let out an incredible sigh. But soon, Aunt May calmed down, and she looked at Kraft. "Since you know so clearly, does that mean you have a way to solve Martin's problem?" "It should be no problem." Kraft is also not sure whether Martin Lee in the two worlds is in the same situation. After all, even the initiator of the experiment is different. Even if the displayed ability is similar, the essence may be very different. It's best to get the original experimental data from Osborne first. "Leave this to me." Angela volunteered to pat her chest. Then O'Reilly on the side saw it, and wanted to join in the fun. "Brother, O'Reilly will also help." Kraft's eyes rolled frantically. "Then you will assist Angela's work, and Angela will arrange the tasks for you for specific tasks." "Good," O'Reilly happily responded, and then looked at Angela expectantly. So excited. Angela, stare. Kraft. Aunt May. After clarifying their origins with Aunt May, Kraft and the others followed her out of the warehouse. Anyway, it's not in a hurry to help Martin Lee solve the problem, but Kraft hasn't helped in the asylum for a long time, just aftertaste. Well, it was actually Angela who arranged the task of helping Aunt May with her work. In order to prevent her from demolishing the shelter, Kraft could only follow her and stare. The dumping operation failed. The people in the asylum saw three strange children suddenly appeared next to Aunt May. Although they were puzzled, most of them didn't ask much. They just responded with a friendly smile, and occasionally asked them curiously. Aunt easily sent it over. These are all the trust and prestige that Aunt May has built up in the asylum for a long time. In Kraft's world, Aunt May is the same, and what she says in the asylum is better than that of old Martin. Next, we will move these disinfectants to that corner. Aunt May had also heard of Angela's assignment to O'Reilly before, and she was naturally happy to cooperate with these two cute little girls. She picked up a box with an empty sterilization tank and handed it to O'Reilly. "Yes, O'Reilly can help me move this." Ouch. O'Reilly looked at Aunt May suspiciously at the fluttering box. In the original world, O'Reilly was also bound by Alice, helping Aunt May in the shelter, because she knew her strength. The other Aunt May would definitely not be polite to her, and the work of carrying heavy objects was basically all. She did it alone. However, O'Reilly didn't care after a second of doubts. Anyway, for her, moving an empty box and moving all the disinfectant are essentially the same. As long as she can participate in and help, she will be very happy. Happy. Yes. Alalay replied vigorously, and put the box presented by Aunt May on his head. Then Aunt May repeated the old trick and took the same box to Angela. Aunt May and Kraft took care of the rest of the disinfection water by one person in a cart, so Kraft did not correct Aunt May's practice. There was not much physical work in the shelter. After helping Aunt May move some small items, Kraft sent the two younger sisters to play on their own, while he helped Aunt May check the inventory together. Ha 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 ha. O'Reilly was sitting in the trolley and being pushed by Angela to walk around in the shelter, leaving a cheerful laugh. The other people in the shelter were not upset. Most of them smiled and watched the two little girls playing crazy there. Angela and O'Reilly looked cute on the one hand, and on the other hand, they naturally appeared with Aunt May. As long as they have a good relationship with Aunt May, anyone in the shelter will be much more tolerant. Oh, brother, Peter the coward is here. Kraft, who was counting the medicines with Aunt May, heard O'Reilly's roar sound from outside. At the entrance of the asylum, a young man was standing there with a dazed expression, looking at O'Reilly, who was pointing his finger at him in a daze. This young man is naturally Peter Parker. He looks almost exactly the same as the Peter Parker who Kraft knows well, except that he looks older. Coward Peter. Aunt May definitely knew that O'Reilly was talking about her nephew's peer in another world, but she still asked Kraft with some worry. Do you know Peter, are you courageous? How do you say this? Kraft touched his nose awkwardly and smirked. Actually, he can't be blamed for being timid, but O'Reilly is better at scaring people. Yes. That's right. That's it. As long as a normal person sees O'Reilly's destructive power, it is impossible not to be frightened, not to mention Peter has a very sharp spider telepathy, so the fright is naturally even greater. So during the period when Peter was in charge of playing with O'Reilly, he acted a little. Well, it's not uncommon to be called a coward by O'Reilly. Just when Peter was confused, he saw Aunt May walking out of it with a Chinese teenager. Hi, Aunt May. Peter temporarily stopped asking O'Reilly's thoughts, and first called roar to Aunt May. Peter. Why are you here? It was definitely very happy to see my nephew, Aunt May. She walked forward and hugged Peter. I happen to be free, so I'll come over and see if I can help. Peter took out the excuse he had prepared for a long time, and while talking with Aunt May, he led her to the staff area of the asylum. Oh, then you are late. Aunt May smiled and patted Kraft on the shoulder. Kraft has done most of my work for me. There is still me. There is still me. O'Reilly, who returned to Kraft's side, raised his hand high and reminded him leaps and bounds. Definitely, the lovely O'Reilly and Angela also helped a lot. Aunt May smiled and touched Alail's head. Oh ho ho. O'Reilly is praised again. Oh, thank you for your help. My name is Peter Parker and I am Aunt May's nephew. Peter quickly thanked Kraft and them, and introduced himself. Kraft Lee. These are my sisters Angela and O'Reilly. Kraft nodded to Peter, and responded indifferently. Kraft. Lee? Peter blinked, then pointed to Kraft suddenly and asked, what are you and Martin? Probably we were a family 500 years ago. Martin Lee led a group of asylum employees and walked out from the corner with a cake. Then he looked at Aunt May and said, you walked here 5 years ago and told me that you were inspired by my mission to help others. Now that the roles have changed, you are the one who inspired me. Thank you, May, thank you for everything. Respect for your hard work over the years. After that, under the leadership of Martin Lee, all the employees applauded Aunt May. Seeing this sudden surprise, and reminiscing about what Kraft said to herself before, Aunt May's mood was a bit complicated, but she quickly adjusted her mindset and thanked everyone gratefully. Since you know May and have the same surname as me, Lee, then stay and join the party. After the applause stopped, Martin Lee extended an invitation to Kraft. Oh. I want to go to the party, O'Reilly responded first. Kraft definitely had no intention of rejecting, then bother. Said it is a party, in fact, it means that everyone gets together, chats and solves the cake, and then they go to their own affairs. After a brief chat with Martin, Peter received a message from Officer Yuri Watanabe, so he found an excuse and ran away in a hurry. As the party drew to a close, after everyone cleaned up their things together, Aunt May found and was about to leave Martin Lee. Martin, do you have time? I want to talk to you. Definitely, let's go upstairs and talk. Looking at Aunt May in surprise, Martin found that the other person's expression was very serious. After a moment of silence, he agreed. Even if he has other important things tonight. Are you looking for me so solemnly to talk about something important? The two came to Martin's office on the second floor. Martin asked Aunt May after pouring a cup of hot tea. I want to talk to you. The negatives in the Devil Gang. Martin Lee. Kraft sat boredly on the bench on the second floor of the asylum, while Angela and O'Reilly, the two little girls, were playing rock, paper, scissors, and the winner could draw a pattern on his face with a paintbrush. On Kraft's face. That's fine, it's better than O'Reilly accidentally tearing it apart. It's not the first time anyway. So Kraft continued to sit on the bench and read Wang Mian's message on the parallel spacetime forum. Brotherhood, the assassin in his world, is already on the right track, but Frank, who had been fighting alongside Wang Mian before, did not join. His philosophy is still different from Assassin's Creed. In addition, due to the presence of a group of ninjas who are not afraid of death, the Shojiwi has become popular in Hell's Kitchen. Recently, the Shojiwi seems to have made some big moves and sent a large number of people to New York. And in order to prevent the Assassin Brotherhood from getting trouble for them, the hands-on will allow those people to enter through formal channels, and their identities are also very clean. They came to New York in the name of employees of several Japanese-owned enterprises. If the nano headphones left by Kraft were not powerful enough, Wang Mian could not even discover their relationship with Shohei. After reading the diary left by Wang Mian chattering on the forum, more than 10 minutes have passed. At the moment Kraft's face and arms are already covered with dense naive patterns, but Aunt May hasn't walked out of Martin Li's office. There was no major movement from definitely, otherwise Kraft would have rushed in. It seems that the negatives of this world still maintain a certain degree of humanity. Originally, Kraft planned to accompany Aunt May to see Martin Li, but she strongly urged that she first talk to Martin Li in this world alone, so Kraft could only wait outside. However, Aunt May's safety is still guaranteed. Kraft specially gave her an automatic energy barrier generator. As long as it detects a strong impact or splashes such as stray bullets nearby, it will automatically turn on. This is a small prop developed by Kraft in the early days, but after having an Arrayli in the family, I don't use it much, because it is always excited, but it is very suitable for ordinary people like Aunt May to use. After a while, the door of Martin Li's office heard the sound of turning his hands, and black mucus instantly poured out of Kraft's skin, and then instantly retracted, taking away the paintings of his sisters on his skin by the way. Martin Li opened the door and saw the boy named Kraft Li walking over with his 2 younger sisters. "Oh, you are here just right," Martin said first. She may have been too tired recently and fell asleep in my office. I have other things to do. She will trouble you to take care of it first. As Martin spoke, he looked at his watch, acting as if he was indeed in a hurry. What about the Devil Gang? Because of respecting Aunt May, Kraft did not monitor the situation inside. Now only Martin came out. He immediately used the power of Mind Gem to scan Martin's office. Judging from the feedback information, Aunt May was only forced to pass out by the power of the negatives, and did not suffer any harm. It seems that the negative energy used in the negatives of this world will be more varied. Anyway, before his own daddy Martin obtained the Mind Gem, his negative energy could only draw out the dark side of others in addition to making weapons, but there was no coma effect. "So you told May." Martin frowned and instantly turned into a negative state, approaching Kraft, growling threateningly. "I don't know where you know these things, but I advise you not to be nosy in the end, not to mention May. Get involved. It looks like Aunt May didn't tell you about us." Kraft scratched his head. "It's too troublesome to explain. Anyway, it's offensive first, Daddy Martin." "What?" Martin Li was taken aback when he heard Kraft calling himself Roar, but before he could react, he saw a spiral of red light covering himself. Immediately afterwards, the boiling negative energy of Martin Li automatically dissipated, and at the same time he felt a strange force rushing into his mind, suppressing his heart demon to death. The field of guided magic and anti-magic with Mind Gem is really suitable for dealing with the negative energy of Martin Li. Martin covered his forehead and fell to his knees. He raised his head with difficulty, looked at Kraft who was standing in front of him, and asked with difficulty, What did you do to me? What?" Although there were bursts of tingling in his head, Martin at the moment was unusually awake. He was not affected by the heart demon, even at the moment. Even though he still hated Norman Osborn, he didn't have the idea of wanting to retaliate against him by any means. "It's just temporarily suppressing the negative energy in your body," Kraft shrugged and replied. "Fortunately, your negative energy is dominated by spiritual power, plus I just got a new kind of strength, otherwise I won't be able to calm you down so quickly." Even with the aid of a bunch of dream technology, Kraft has never been able to directly control the power of infinite gems, especially the soul and mind, the 2 gems that he does not have corresponding equipment, which are very jerky when used. It was not until the power of the Iron Fist was obtained that Kraft used the power of infinite gems a little smoother, especially the 2 gems of power and mind, because they have corresponding attributes, so they control the power of these 2 gems. The improvement is the most. Coupled with the state of the negatives, the demon in Martin Li's heart is so obvious in the eyes of Kraft who owns the Mind Gem that Martin Li was originally covered, so he can find and suppress it in an instant. "Martin. Come on, you will be able to defeat it." Aunt May, who had been awakened by Kraft using Mind Gem, walked over and held his hand to encourage her. When Martin used negative energy to feint Aunt May, she also experienced the feeling of uncontrollable emotions, so she can better understand how uncontrollable Martin Li can persist for so long under the torment of this energy. Easy. "Angela, how is the data collection?" Kraft turned his head and asked Angela. "I found it, but it doesn't make much sense.
Angela, who had been working silently before the party started, shook her head and replied.
The official name of the drug that caused the mutation of Uncle Martin is GR27, and the scientists who studied it gave it the nickname, Devil's Breath. The original purpose of Norman Osborn's creation of it was to document Harry Osborn's genes. Genetic disease, but it clearly failed. Angela blinked and projected a blurry video from her right eye. Uncle Martin's parents wanted to treat him, but they were tricked by Norman Osborn to participate in their first human experiment. Then in that experiment, Martin Lee became Mr. Negative. Following Angela's explanation, Martin Lee, who was still a child in the video, howled huge amounts of negative energy, exploding the bones of his parents beside him. Martin on the side saw this picture that had been torturing him, and closed his eyes in pain. But the GR27 at that time and the GR27 are not the same thing anymore, and Uncle Martin's situation is an accidental situation and basically cannot be used as an experimental basis, just like Peter became a Spider-Man after he was bitten by a spider. Similarly, there is a high probability that ordinary people will only die by poisoning. Peter. Is he really a Spider-Man? Regarding Peter's identity, Aunt May has already been aware of it, but has never been able to confirm it. Now that Angela says this, she is not surprised, but rather thoughtful. In addition, if you want information on the early GR27, I recommend that you go to Dr. Octavius. He and Norman Osborn developed the GR27 together. It was only because of Uncle Martin who voluntarily withdrew from the experiment. And then Norman Osborn found others for follow-up research. Dr. Octavius? This name seems familiar to me. It's the Dr. Octopus of our world. Angela projected two different photos, both fat and bald, but Dr. Otto in this world is a bit bald. But at present, Dr. Octavius in this world is still normal, and his octopus tentacles are still in the elementary level stage of development. Well, Peter is currently working as his assistant, but according to the information I found, the grant for this research will soon be stopped by Norman Osborn, a very common technique for embezzlement. There's another news, brother, you might be interested in. Harry is now soaked in a solution jar by Norman Osborn. The thing inside is used to repair his genetic defect. It's like a symbiont. As Angela projected pieces of information, Kraft couldn't help but smack his lips. Uncle Norman in this world. A bit cruel. It feels like a person named Shimura Danzo in the Dreamland. Peter Parker, based on the report of police officer Yuri, came to an art museum that once belonged to Jin Nong. Definitely, it still belongs to Fisker, but the property inside is facing official review. If it is found that there is illegally obtained property, it will be auctioned by the government, and the money obtained will be collected into the New York City financial system. Middle. Although Jin did not go to jail, his relationship is still there, not to mention that he and the mayor Norman Osborn have a lot of nasty things, so most of the property here is ultimately no problem. At most, it would donate a few works of art to contribute to New York City's finances. After sneaking into this art museum from the ventilation duct at the back door, Peter found that it was controlled by a group of robbers wearing weird black and white masks. At the moment, they were asking the administrator of this art museum what they seemed to be looking for. However, according to the administrator's answer, the files seemed to have been taken away by a female reporter who had come to interview before, and the masked robbers at the moment were searching the art museum and wanted to find people out. Well, I don't know why. Peter always feels that this development trend is a bit familiar, but now the most important thing is to save the hostage first. He crawled silently on the ceiling, trying to find a chance to save the art museum administrator. While sneaking, Peter secretly reduced the number of robbers, and in unexpected ways, he pasted them to the ceiling with cobwebs, or hung them from beams. Probably it was the mask that affected the line of sight, and none of the robbers who were hanged in the sky by the Spider-Man had been discovered by his own. In the process of cleaning up the robbers, Peter found a camera on a shelf in a warehouse. This is obviously something that does not belong to the art museum. It seems that the reporter mentioned by the administrator is indeed someone. Then, Peter's ex-girlfriend Mary Jane suddenly appeared in front of him. "Hey, Peter." Cow stunned the robber who stumbled upon Spider-Man. Mary Jane smiled and greeted Roar, who was part-time, with her ex-boyfriend. "MJ. Why are you here?" Peter was surprised and delighted by the appearance of Mary Jane, and he hurried forward to greet her. However, there are still hostages being taken hostage, and they simply exchanged information, and Peter asked Mary Jane to hide it first, and then leave with the documents after he has solved the robbers. It's a pity that the hope is not fulfilled. Mary Jane was discovered by the robbers before Peter quietly solved the robbers. In desperation, Peter had to take the initiative to show up and fight with the group of robbers. Because these robbers with weird masks were not afraid to die, and seemed to possess some special power, Peter was entangled by them for a while, and he could only watch the documents snatched by them. It took a lot of effort to solve the robbers who had been broken off. Peter unwillingly chased him out while informing the police to come and deal with the aftermath. But it is a pity that those robbers with documents have long since disappeared in the vast crowds of New York, and Peter has no way of finding them. Helpless Peter Parker had to choose to turn back, and took out his mobile phone by the way, and sent out a dinner invitation to Mary Jane. Although he had only eaten cake in the asylum. Then the two of them sat in a restaurant they used to go to and ate French fries. No idea. Who knows that this restaurant suddenly changed to an Italian restaurant? That is not an exaggeration but a slightly higher price than before. Now the shy Peter Parker can't afford it. Fortunately, they are still selling French fries. Although it may seem a bit bad to ask an ex-girlfriend to eat fries, but fortunately, Mary Jane always likes to eat fries in Mick's restaurant. Peter Parker didn't think of it a bit in his mind. The French fries here are the best in New York. Mary Jane gnawed on the French fries and praised the cheapest food in this shop as before. See. Peter thought it was a brilliant idea to bring Mary to Mick's restaurant for dinner. So he started chatting with Mary Jane while the iron was hot. Peter, who fell on the roof of his rental house, took off his mask, sighed and went to the corner where he was hiding the normal clothes, and changed his spider suit. Originally in Mick's restaurant, his chat with Mary Jane was getting better. Peter still wanted to restore her friend's identity first, and then slowly make Mary Jane change her mind. As a result, the other party suddenly said, "Do you remember why we broke up?" Making Peter's plan fall short. "If I knew why, I wouldn't have broken up in the first place." Peter scratched his hair irritably, feeling that guessing the thoughts of his ex-girlfriend was 100 times more difficult than fighting criminals. After venting with torturing his hair, Peter dragged his heavy steps and walked to his rental house. Inserting the key into the keyhole familiarly, Peter turns the key in his hand. Crack. There was a slight click in the door lock, and the key in Peter's hand could no longer open the door. "Oh, please." Recalling the rent reminder that he had received not long ago, Peter's shoulders collapsed and he looked even more tired. Everything else doesn't matter, but the spider hard drive loaded with his years of research data must be retrieved. Looking around, there was no one else. Peter Parker stepped back a little bit, then turned sideways and slammed into the familiar door in front of him. Click. At this moment, the aspect was opened from the inside, and a cute-looking blonde little girl appeared in front of Peter Parker. "Oh no. Get away." Peter recognized at a glance that this was the little girl named Angela among the 3 brothers and sisters who followed Aunt May before, but it was too late for him to break suddenly. However, the other party did not heed his warning, still looking up at him with a small face, blankly looking at him. Peter guessed that the little girl was probably shocked. Even if Peter didn't know Angela, he didn't want to hurt an innocent girl, so he gritted his teeth, risking his identity, kicked his legs hard on the ground, and wanted to get off the other's head. Passed. Then Peter saw that the little girl named Angela stretched out her little hand calmly, grabbed her ankle, and abruptly tore herself out of the air with his dazed face. Boom. Peter's back made a dull and powerful crashing sound on the floor, and he could even feel the disrepaired floor beneath him a little shaky. Even so, this level of impact is actually nothing to Spider-Man. But Peter Parker at the moment's head was blank. He stared at the ceiling blankly and initiated 3 philosophical questions. Who am I? Where am I from? Where am I going? The famous Spider-Man was kicked out because he couldn't pay the rent. It's too bad for you to be a superhero, Peter. Just when Peter Parker was lying on the ground doubting his life, he heard such a sigh. Peter was shocked, and quickly turned over and jumped from the ground, looking at the source of the sound. It is the elder brother of the 3 siblings who I know today who is talking. At the moment, he is sitting at the desk in his room, playing SpongeBob on his laptop. Kraft? Recalling the other's name, Peter walked quickly into his former room and closed the door. After walking into the room, Peter found that another little girl with purple hair was also there. At the moment was occupying the bed, with a very heroic gesture. Roar was sleeping. I am not a Spider-Man. Peter mistakenly thought that Kraft had read about Spider-Man through his notebook, so he used the excuse he had in Dr. Otto's earlier and said, I'm just helping Spider-Man make a battlesuit. Speaking of it, my computer was clearly encrypted, but the other party could actually crack it. The children nowadays are really amazing. Peter recalled the little girl who had squeezed herself to the ground just now, and her back couldn't help but feel a faint pain. By the way, why are you in my house? Dr. Octavius? just didn't want to expose you, so he made such an excuse for you. Do you really think he didn't guess that you were a Spider-Man? Kraft curled his lips. He had contacted Dr. Octavius before coming, and successfully persuaded him to help him treat Martin Lee. In the absence of octopus tentacles, Dr. Octavius was still very reasonable. In addition, this is no longer your home. You have been driven out by the landlord because you have not paid the rent. If it weren't for me, the landlord would have packed these things in your room long ago and waited for the garbage truck to collect them. Kraft threw the new key to this room to Peter Parker, sarcastically saying, "You are really the worst superhero I have ever seen." There is too much information in the other party's words. Peter has a stomach of questions to ask, but he doesn't know which question to start with. Then he was interrupted by the flying key and asked subconsciously, "I have bought the key to this room and gave it to Aunt May. You don't have to worry about someone coming to urge you for rent in the future." "Wait. This is too expensive. I can't take it." Peter Parker immediately refused. Then he heard Kraft sneer, "I am giving it to Aunt May and not to you. If you want to pay the rent, go to Aunt May by yourself. As long as you can afford it." Seeing Peter still looked tangled, the mockery on Kraft's face grew stronger. "Or do you want to find another place to live because of that boring self-esteem? In the end, if you are desperate, you have to ask Aunt May." I see. Thank you." Peter's face kept changing, and finally he lowered his head slumped. A penny stumped the hero. Although this kid named Kraft spoke a little bit ugly, it was a fact. Before Peter hit the door, he thought about whether to go to the asylum to deal with it for one night. Asking Aunt May for help makes no difference at all. "I don't know if your head is flooded." Kraft refused to let Peter go, and violently complained to him. "Obviously there are so many profitable technologies on hand, and I don't know whether to sell one or two, to improve our lives. Is it difficult to use cobweb mixture to make a weakened version of the rope or protective net and other patents? Or to develop towards the adhesive, is it difficult to get a strong glue? Even if you don't want to sell things related to Spider-Man, it shouldn't be difficult to use your brain to make other convenient living utensils or small toys. Even if you are not creative, you can find someone to do market research. Take a step back and use the speed of your swing in New York to deliver express delivery, and use your Superman's power to load and unload goods at the dock. At least the most basic security of life is okay. It's right for you to be a superhero busy, but I would like to ask, after spending some time to solve the problems in your life, you can devote yourself to the hero's career with high efficiency, or are you still worrying about yourself while attacking criminals? What to eat for a meal, and where will you stay productive tomorrow?" Like a machine gun, Kraft kept screaming at Peter Parker, screaming at him for a moment, and his talkative mouth seemed to be sealed by his cobweb, and there was no way to answer it. Because after thinking about what Kraft said, Peter also thinks, this makes sense. In fact, Peter has vaguely considered similar issues before, but whenever he wants to think about it, there will be some sudden events that interrupt his thoughts, and then he ran away. Save people or fight crime. After a lot of things are dealt with, this problem has long been forgotten by Peter. Now that he calmed down and thought about it carefully, Peter also felt that he should arrange his life problems first. He doesn't care much about whether he makes money or not, but Kraft's claims about superheroes' work efficiency hit Peter's pain points. As he left Aunt May's custody and started living alone, his superhero job was indeed affected by some trivial things in life, which often made him feel tired. Even he thought he would break up with Mary Jane, and it had something to do with this aspect. But this matter can't come in a hurry. I still have the job of Dr. Octavius, which is a technology that can benefit countless people. When he helps Dr. Octavius complete the development of his robotic arm, then think about your own problems. This is the nature of Peter Parker, his own affairs are never the most important. But then Kraft spoke again. "Oh, one more thing. Your job with Dr. Octavius has been cancelled. Norman Osborn will stop the research grant tomorrow, trying to force Dr. Octavius to return. The Austrian group worked for him, so Dr. Octavius decided to break the contract first and ran away with relevant information 2 hours ago. Naturally, the official subsidies are not taken for nothing. For all research that receives official subsidies, the New York City government has half ownership. After Kraft found Dr. Octavius and told him Norman Osborn's plan, he packed all the materials and equipment without saying a word, and ran away with Kraft. So tomorrow Norman Osborn is destined to take a shot. After everything was explained, Kraft opened the portal directly regardless of whether Peter believed it or not, and left here. Angela picked up O'Reilly, who was still sleeping in Roar, followed him and walked into the portal door. Peter Parker hadn't recovered from Kraft's last shocking topic. He saw that they had left in such a sci-fi way, and he could not react at all. The whole person was in a state of constant awkwardness. These three siblings. Who are they? What are you doing here? Leaving Peter's side, Kraft came to the demon gang's quarters. The previous Martin Lee had already taken the initiative to enter the energy prison under the suppression of the mind gem. Now that he has lost the suppression of the mind gem, the heart of the film has the upper hand and began to make noise in the cage. However, how can Kraft's energy cage have such a breakthrough, except for the guys other than the rule of Araley? Even Angela's mechanical duplication will have to waste a lot of work to break free. You are back, Kraft. As soon as Kraft walked out of the portal, Dr. Otto greeted him. He glanced at Martin Lee, who was in the cage with lingering heart. If he really, as Kraft said, would change his personality due to the nervous system of the mechanical tentacles, then Martin Lee's current state is own future. Moreover, the situation of Dr. Otto was different from Martin Lee. Martin was corrupted by the negative energy. As long as this side effect was eliminated, he could still recover. Dr. Otto's future situation is to directly physically interfere with the brain and nervous system, but it is not so easy to change it back. So he is very lucky now that he can be stopped before he can't recover. Kraft's theory of parallel worlds is indeed hard to believe, but Dr. Otto doesn't have much doubt. Because of the technical and financial capabilities shown by the other party, there is no reason to deceive him. Even the mechanical prosthetic technique he is studying, Kraft has more than one kind, and Dr. Otto really can't think of what he has to covet. In addition, Kraft showed him the video of the suspected parallel world. The mechanical tentacles used in it were still a vague idea in his mind, but the finished product has appeared in the video, and Dr. Otto makes sure you have never seen or heard of a similar invention. So, is your information finished, Dr. Otto? Kraft nodded his head casually as a response, and then asked vigorously. Definitely, but I think this information may not help much. Martin Lee's situation is an accidental situation, and we don't have the second experimental data in hand. It is too difficult to confirm the principle of negative energy generation. Ends. Dr. Otto called up the data he had just recalled and sorted out the research materials he had participated in the GR27, and sighed and shook his head. Browsing the relevant information compiled by Dr. Otto, Kraft corrected his statement. In fact, there are other experimental data. After you left, Osborne did not stop researching. There will be some experimental data in the follow-up, which I have already given. I got it. Looking at Kraft's newly imported experimental data, Dr. Otto's face became more difficult to look at. Damn. How dare he? After Martin Lee's parents died because of the devil's breath, the laboratory prepared by Jin he was not immediately abandoned. Norman Osborn continued to conduct several human experiments in it. It's just that those people had worse luck than Martin Lee, and they all died on the test bench. This is why Jin did not describe the devil's breath as Pandora's box in that document. However, it is a pity that these blood-stained experimental data have no practical value. Kraft took the initiative to close the window after watching it for a while. It seems that I can only start from the beginning. With a helpless sigh, Kraft remembered the difficult experience of solving the side effects of Green Goblin for Harry Osborn. It doesn't seem to be very difficult. According to the original experimental procedures, the first thing to do is to enable patients to actively cooperate. Kraft scratched his head and looked at Martin Lee in the cage. Martin Lee, who was thinking about how to break free from this energy prison, suddenly went cold, always feeling that something bad was going to happen to him. At this moment, Martin Lee suddenly saw that Kraft, who claimed to be his adopted son of Parallel World, stretched out his palm, and shouted to himself, "Come and try your own tricks in Parallel World. Salted fish rays." Said it as a ray, but Kraft's hand does not have the same negative energy black aura as the negative. After all, it is just a force simulated by Mind Gem. Martin Lee in the cage only felt that a huge amount of despair had enveloped him. All the efforts he had made in the past seemed to be worthless and meaningless. I'm a gang leader, how can I get the behemoth Osborn, or commit suicide? Martin Lee knelt down on the ground in a frustrated manner, bends forward, his mouth was muttering. It really works. It seems that the negatives of this world, the mental ability is still inferior to the strengthened Papa Martin. Excuse me. Does it make any sense for you to do this? Dr. Otto asked curiously. He couldn't see how Kraft's operation would help the research. Oh, it doesn't make any sense, I just try. Kraft, who inherited the dwarf system research method, agreed casually, and reached out to Martin in the salty state again. Wow. Dad. Mom. Norman Osborn. I want to destroy everything that you hold dear. Dr. Otto glanced at Kraft, who seemed to be enjoying himself, and moved quietly to get a little away from him. Suddenly I feel that the other party is not very reliable. How to break? Fortunately, when the follow-up study really started, Kraft's performance was still very reliable. No, it should be said that it was quite reliable, even more amazed than Dr. Otto's most proud student Peter Parker. But think about it carefully. After all, the opponent is able to travel in parallel time and space, and it is not unusual to have such a performance. It was the habit of Kraft who would come up with some weird ideas from time to time and put them into action quickly, which made Dr. Otto a little frightened. Isn't he worried about what's wrong? After seeing Martin Li's situation and his future, Dr. Otto became more cautious. However, he was unfounded and worried. Kraft's whims were basically certain that there would be no sequelae. Even if something went wrong, he had the ability to take the risk with infinite gems. With the help of Dr. Otto, Martin Li's problem was quickly resolved. However, unlike Kraft's father Martin, his situation is not a dual personality, but the influence of negative energy, so after solving the problem of Martin Li, although the negative energy is still there, the effect of corrupting people's hearts has also disappeared. Thank you very much for your help. Martin Li, who has recovered, sincerely thanked Kraft and Dr. Otto. Although the treatment process was a bit, well, tormented, it was acceptable to be able to no longer be controlled by the heart demon in his thoughts. Definitely, Martin Li did not give up his hatred of Norman Osborn, but his revenge will no longer be as aggressive as before, but he intends to change a way that will not harm the innocent. And he still has Dr. Otto who hates Osborn, and the help of Kraft who has a complicated relationship with him. It shouldn't be difficult for him to come and ruin Norman Os. As for why the relationship between Kraft and Martin Li is complicated. Martin has believed that Kraft is his adopted son in the parallel world, but he is treating himself for various performances in the process of treatment. Martin feels that the relationship between their father and son does not seem to be so harmonious. Otherwise, why would Kraft take revenge on me like this? Yes, Martin mistakenly took Kraft's dwarf-thinking research habits as Kraft's revenge on his adoptive father. While Kraft was treating Martin Li for the negative energy sequelae, Peter Parker once again came to the homeless shelter with the mask previously seized from the members of the Demon Gang. He intends to ask Mr. Martin Li, who is more researched in history, and ask him if he knows the origin of this mask. It's a pity that when Peter arrived here, he was told that Martin Li had something to leave. Before leaving, he left the asylum to Aunt May to take care of it. This is really unfortunate. But it's all here. Peter still went to see Aunt May, and by the way, ask Kraft what they are all about. However, before Peter could speak, he was scolded by Aunt May. Next time I need help, I will take the initiative. If Kraft hadn't told me, I didn't know that my nephew had been kicked out because he couldn't pay the rent. Even if it is a reproach, Aunt May still speaks in a good voice. Spider-Man, who is usually able to speak well, can only open his mouth and put that silly when facing Aunt May. Seeing Peter like this, Aunt May also shook her head helplessly. Your character is really like Ben, she sighed with nostalgia. You have to learn to swallow the arrogance of the Parker family and accept that you are immortal just like everyone else. Aunt May, who already knew the identity of Peter Spider-Man, persuaded him in a subtle way. Peter just touched the back of his head and lowered his head and smiled. With a helpless sigh, Aunt May did not continue to persuade, but took out a few banknotes and handed them over. You can hold these money first, and you won't have enough to tell me. No, Aunt May, I can't accept it. Peter quickly refused. You have solved the accommodation problem for me. I can't ask you for any more money. Did you not listen to what I just said? Aunt May was really a little angry now. She forced the banknote into Peter's hand. And you know, I got an apartment building for nothing, and this little money is nothing to me now. Hearing Aunt May mention this, Peter remembered his intentions. He didn't care about pushing away these few banknotes with Aunt May, and asked directly, right. I'm just about to ask you about this. That Clough, who is this special? Based on Peter's understanding of Aunt May, even if she gave her a building by herself, she would not necessarily accept it. She accepted Kraft's gift so easily, and she had never heard of Aunt May before. No such a person. What's more, the other party still seems so mysterious. Whether it is his infinitely powerful sister or the kind of technology that can be teleported at will, it is obviously not an ordinary person. Oh, Kid Kraft. Talking about the child in the parallel world, Aunt May showed a petting smile. Although she had only known each other in less than a day, she had already regarded Kraft as a nephew who was as close as Peter. No, Kraft's kid is more sensible than Peter, and more capable. Peter Parker glanced disgustingly, and Aunt May of the two worlds had the same eccentric view. His identity is a bit complicated, and he doesn't want you to know it now. I can't tell you without his consent. Aunt May thought for a while, and added, anyway, you can treat him as your own brother. Definitely will he admit that your brother is another matter. Before Kraft showed Aunt May some black material about Peter from another world, she had also heard that good brother. Out of trust in Aunt May, Peter was a little depressed, but he still put down his defenses against Kraft. But why do you feel a little gloating in Aunt May's eyes when she looks at me? Peter Parker walked out of the asylum with a lot of doubts, and then dialed Mary Jane's phone. Hi, MJ, Martin has left. Do you know any acquaintances who have studied history? This is really unfortunate. Mary Jane on the other end of the phone sighed similarly to Peter. I didn't think of anyone else who could ask for a while. Or you can give me the mask first, and when I remember, or meet the right person, I will take it and look for them. As a reporter who runs around, Mary Jane is more convenient to get in touch with this type of character, so she suggested that. And Peter Parker's mind was also refreshed at this time, and he quickly invited him. It just happens to be almost noon. How about going for lunch together? Although Mary Jane's delivery proposition led to the failure of his compound plan last night, Peter Parker still did not give up, but because of last night's experience, Peter waited nervously for Mary Jane's reply after sending out the invitation. Mike's restaurant again. Mary Jane on the other end of the phone was really angry and funny. If she hadn't lost her feelings for Peter Parker, how could he date herself with his poor pickup skills? Yes. He didn't know that he was being disliked by his ex-girlfriend. Peter heard that Mary Jane didn't directly refuse, and quickly moved the phone away from his ear, whispered "roar up," and shook his fist into the air twice. It must be inappropriate to invite someone to eat French fries for lunch. Peter is not stupid enough, besides. Reaching out and touching the support he had just received from Aunt May in his pocket, Peter thought of a good place to go. How about Burger King? That's one of Mr. Stark's favorite restaurants. Then, the one next to Madame Tussauds. Mary Jane rolled her eyes speechlessly, but still, as usual, accommodating Peter's unromantic choices. Okay. Let's meet there at exactly 12 o'clock. Peter, who didn't realize how bad his choice was, clenched his fists excitedly again, flicked twice in the air, and hurriedly set the time. In Burger King's shop, Mary Jane was dangling a straw, sipping a Coke that had already bottomed out board. It was almost 12:30, and Peter Parker hadn't arrived yet. But Mary Jane has long been accustomed to the fact that the other party is often late, and she doesn't even bother to call or send a text message to inquire. I must have been caught in some case again, or I met someone in need. She has already learned it. Used. Ends. Mary Jane squeezed the paper cup in her hand, grabbed it and slapped it on the table, then let out a long sigh of relief. Although knowing that Peter must have something to do, although knowing that he is doing the right thing, although she has experienced similar situations dozens or hundreds of times. But, still so angry. Scratching her hair irritably, Mary Jane got up from her seat and went to the counter and ordered a cup of iced coffee. She wants to drink something bitter now. Finally, when the iced coffee in Mary Jane's hand was about to bottom out, Peter Parker finally hurried in. Sorry, MJ, I'm late. Peter, with 5 keen senses, quickly found Mary Jane's location. It doesn't matter, I have just arrived. Mary Jane changed her previous gloomy look and put on a relaxed expression. You go order food first, we'll talk while eating. Okay. What do you want? Not only was Mary Jane used to this way of getting along, but Peter was also familiar with the topic. It's not that Peter thinks this is definitely for granted. Although he is often slower, he still knows about Mary Jane's contribution, but in this case, Peter has nothing else to do except apologize. Because Peter is impossible to change, and Mary also knows that he cannot change, so simply apologize, forgive, and then expose it. This is the tacit understanding they have formed over the years. After ordering at the counter, Peter returned to his seat with a pile of food. Attentively tearing open the package for Mary Jane, Peter passed the hamburger in his hand. And Mary Jane reached out to take it, indicating that she was really not angry, so that Peter should not take it to heart. This silent tacit understanding gave the two a good start. After talking about the masked people and the devil's breath last night, they talked about the past bit by bit. Come on, Peter. The atmosphere is good now. Peter secretly cheered himself up, and then prepared to revisit the old things and let the two restore their friendship. As for the proposition that killed the game last night, he also consulted omnipotent netizens on the internet and got several solutions. MJ, The proposal I made last night is that we are still friends." Just as Peter Parker plucked up the courage to speak, a cheerful voice suddenly rang in his ear. "Ouch. It's Peter the coward. How are you?" Peter turned his head with a sullen face, and found that he didn't know when two teenage girls suddenly appeared beside him. Since Kraft was busy treating Martin Lee, O'Reilly must have been unable to stay in the laboratory, so Kraft sent Angela out and asked her to take her sister out to play by herself. Anyway, it is basically impossible for anyone to hurt them. As for whether there will be any trouble, how can it be? O'Reilly is so good, and as long as she doesn't beat the floor and call Roar casually, everything else is just a small problem. It's also a coincidence that Angela was taking O'Reilly to the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum just now, and O'Reilly saw Marilyn Monroe's wax figure oppressing her skirt, and she was curious about what she was pressing. O'Reilly went up and lifted it. I took a look at the waxed skirt. Then they were driven out by the staff. When the two little girls who were kicked out were wandering around nearby, they saw Peter Parker in Burger King through the glass, and then they looked for him. "Why are you two here?" Peter Parker looked around, but couldn't find Kraft. "Where is your brother?" "My brother has something to do, so O'Reilly and I came out to play." Angela was afraid of O'Reilly's leak, and replied first. "Kraft is so irresponsible. How can you let your two little girls run around like this?" "I don't know how terrible these two little girls are." Peter frowned, patted Alail's head and said, "Have you had lunch? Brother Peter treats you today, and I will send you back after eating." "Oh. I want to eat. I want to eat." O'Reilly didn't know what politeness was, so he agreed with one bite. "MJ, you accompany them here first, and I'll get some food." "Definitely no problem." Mary Jane was also very interested in these two cute little girls. She smiled and stroked Angela's head, who was closer to her, and asked curiously, "Why do you call Peter coward what?" O'Reilly tilted his head inexplicably. "Ouch. There is no reason, because he is a coward." Peter Parker can't take it as he didn't hear this. He quickly argued, "I don't know why. They called me like that when they first met." As he said, Peter leaned on his knees and leaned in front of O'Reilly. "Who told you that I was a coward? Is it Kraft?" "No." O'Reilly told the truth. "You were a coward." "Where am I being timid?" Peter's stubborn temper is also coming up. If he says this before he has not mutated, he will probably recognize it. But now, he, Peter Parker, the famous Spider-Man. Will it be a coward? Oh. O'Reilly blinked blankly. She didn't understand why a fact still needed to be proved. But O'Reilly is a clever child. After a brief period of loss, she raised her small fist high and tried to hit Peter Parker. Danger, 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 danger. The moment the little girl with purple hair raised his hand, Peter Parker's spider telepathy instantly filled the alarm. His whole body was erected, and the cold sweat instantly soaked his back. Wow. Under this sudden impact, Peter Parker subconsciously wanted to go back with all his strength. Fortunately, Peter's only remaining sane tells him that this place is under the public, and he cannot reveal his identity. He then forcibly stopped his instinct, but because of this, he turned back to the past and landed with his buttocks. He moved back quickly, and drew a long distance from O'Reilly. Ha 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 ha. Coward. Coward. Peter is a coward. O'Reilly retracted his fist, pointed at the panicked Peter and laughed. This trick is a great test of Lark when dealing with Peter, and O'Reilly perfectly proves what she said before. The huge movement here naturally attracted the attention of other people around. Burger King staff also walked over and asked Peter, who was sitting on the floor strangely, "Mister, is there anything I need help?" "Oh, no, nothing. I'm just having fun with my children. I'm sorry to disturb you." Peter was shocked for a moment, and then reacted quickly. He quickly stood up and apologized to the customers around him. For the sake of the two little girls, the others didn't mean to pursue them. Instead, they whispered praise for the cute looks of Angela and O'Reilly. "Peter, even if you were coaxing the kids, you pretend to be too exaggerated, right?" Mary Jane shook her head and laughed. She was startled by Peter's exaggerated reaction at first, but now she really believes the excuse of playing with the kids. "Ah. Did you scare you? I'm really embarrassed." Peter looked suspiciously at O'Reilly, who was like an ordinary little girl now, and did not tell Mary Jane the truth. He also didn't think that his spider telepathy had made a mistake. After all, he was grabbed by Angela with one hand and pulled to the ground, so it is not uncommon for O'Reilly to have similar strange powers. After hesitation for a moment, Peter still left the two of them here to Mary Jane out of trust in Aunt May. He quickly took some food from the counter and hurried back. Angela and O'Reilly did not cause any moths during this time. but sat obediently next to Mary Jane, allowing her to feed on themselves. Roar. Peter, who came back with the food, breathed a sigh of relief, and then pushed the burger and drink in his hand in front of the two little girls. The two little girls were not polite to Peter either. They picked up the food and delivered it to their mouths. However, there is still a big difference in how the two eat. Angela nibbles like a little rabbit, while Aurelie is much bolder, pinching the hamburger and stuffing it in her mouth, both cheeks. They are all bulging, like hamsters. Don't eat in such a hurry. Mary Jane wiped the salad dressing from the corner of Aurelie's mouth amusedly. Are you starving? No, it's like that when Aurelie eats. Angela calmly replied for Aurelie, who can only you now. When Aurelie gobbled up the food in front of him and started to drink the paper cup, Mary Jane looked at Peter Parker. Peter, don't you introduce me to it? To be honest, I only met them yesterday. Peter smiled bitterly, and then introduced to both parties. This is Angela and Aurelie. They also have an older brother named Kraft. They seem to know Aunt May very well, but I only met them yesterday. Then Peter pointed at Mary Jane again. This is Mary Jane Watson. You can call her MJ, it's mine. Well, good friend. Peter took this opportunity to confirm the relationship between the two of them. Mary Jane naturally saw his careful thinking, but she did not deny it, but just rolled her eyes. Then she found that Angela and Aurelie looked a little strange in their eyes. What's wrong? Peter also has a girlfriend named Mary Jane, who looks more prettier than you. Aurelie told the truth. The appearances of Mary Jane in the two worlds are not the same, but if they really compare each other, in fact, the two have their own characteristics. As a stage actor, Mary Jane is more charming, and Mary Jane in front of her is more similar. It's the kind of girl next door. But in the usual dress, actor Mary is much more fashionable than reporter Mary, and her skin is better than reporter Mary, who is in the sun every day, so Aurelie would say that the other Mary is more beautiful. Oh? Mary Jane squinted her eyes, looked at Peter Parker coldly, and asked calmly, why haven't I heard you say that you still know a beautiful woman with the same name as me, Peter? Peter's cold sweat soaked his back again, and he quickly denied, impossible. I definitely don't know the second Mary Jane. They must have heard Aunt May say that you want to be more beautiful. Ah. Peter, who noticed that he had said the wrong thing, covered his mouth. So, I'm not pretty now, am I? Mary Jane's eyes grew colder. No, MJ, I didn't mean that. Yes, Peter really didn't mean that. Angela started to speak for Peter. She took out a mobile phone from her pocket and called up a photo of Peter and Mary in another world, and put it on the table. You and that Mary Jane is really not alone. As a robot and artificial intelligence, Angela naturally doesn't use a mobile phone. This is just for her to put it on her body, but now it comes in handy. As for why Angela suddenly stabbed Peter Parker. Who made Peter speak ill of Brother Kraft just now? And all the people from our Lee family are Spider-Man nemesis. With the photo as evidence, Peter Parker is even more inconsistent. Although he really doesn't know who the red-haired beauty on the phone is, the man next to him is obviously himself from college. The murderous look in Mary Jane's eyes was already revealed. She and Peter had indeed broken up. If Peter finds another girlfriend during the breakup, Mary Jane would not say anything. After all, when the two were not together, she has also interacted with other people. But Peter in the photo is obviously much younger, and at that time, the two are in love. In other words, Peter Parker, this looking honest and loyal guy, actually cheated a long time ago. No. There is definitely something wrong with this photo. MJ, you must believe me. Although it is not clear what is going on, it is absolutely impossible for Peter Parker to admit such an unreasonable charge. Then you mean, these two kids are lying. However, Mary Jane does not believe Peter's sophistry. Angela and Aurelie, two girls who may not seem to be 10 years old, have any reason to lie and frame Peter Parker. Besides, there are photos as proof. But I really don't know her. Peter was about to cry. It was hard for him to see the hope of reuniting with his ex-girlfriend, but the two little girls who had only known each other for a couple of days had a mess. Let's not talk about reuniting, and Mary Jane won't be beaten to death. It's all good. Peter Parker, who didn't plan to sit still, decided to struggle a bit. He picked up the phone on the desk and started to check other photos. Angela didn't stop it. Anyway, she could directly control what the photo was inside. But Mary Jane quit. She snatched the phone in Peter's hand and angrily said, "You are invading the privacy of others, or do you want to delete the evidence?" Probably touched a certain video while snatching the phone. There was a loud noise in the phone in Mary Jane's hand, followed by Peter Parker's voice. "Mary, will you marry me?" Mary Jane was attracted by the sound and turned her attention to the phone screen. A large number of balloons are flying on the screen. The young Peter Parker and the woman named Mary Jane are surrounded by a lot of flowers. At the moment, Mary is taking the ring in Peter's hand with a touch of emotion, and there was a circle of people standing next to them, but Mary didn't know each other. This is the video of Peter Parker when he proposed to Mary Jane. In order to surprise her, he also specially asked Harry Osborn, Ned Liz, and Kraft and other friends to serve as advisors. Pretty big. Anyway, Mary Jane in front of her had never experienced such a romantic thing. Angela was still introducing. This is Brother Kraft, and this is Sister Alice. They all went to help at the time. In addition, this fat man was called Ned, who was, well, Sister Mary in the video. Good friend. And many more. Peter finally caught the loophole. I only knew Kraft yesterday. Also, he is not the right age. Based on Kraft's age in the video, Peter guessed what Kraft used to make such a video. After all, the other party even has a portal. It shouldn't be difficult to fake photos and videos. Mary Jane was a little confused at this time, because Peter looked so swearing that he didn't seem to be lying, and he did say before that he was the boy named Kraft that he only met yesterday. What exactly is going on? Tisk. I made a mistake. Angela whispered a word, then put the phone on the table away. Her expressionless little face suddenly became brilliant, and she blinked a pair of innocent big eyes and looked at Mary Jane. What's the matter? I don't understand, Sister Mary, what are you talking about? When things got to this point, Mary Jane didn't understand what was going on. It would be a ghost. She rolled her eyes silently, and then reached out and squeezed Angela's face, and said angrily, "Little age, it's not a good habit to just lie." But Angela plausibly said, "Brother said, pranks are not a lie. This is a way to express closeness between friends. I can't bear your kind of intimacy. There is absolutely a problem with your brother's education method." It was finally proved that the innocent Peter collapsed on the chair, and complained with anger and resentment under his stomach. In this short period of time, Peter was frightened out of cold sweat by these two little girls, and he was exhausted. But the other party is just two little girls under 10 years old. Although they have terrible strength, Peter is not good at them, so he can only attack Kraft roundly. Hearing Peter Parker's bad things about her brother again, Angela's small face returned to a state of expressionless expression, just staring at him in a straight and blank manner. What's wrong? Peter, who was uncomfortably stared at by Angela, twisted his body and turned his head to avoid Angela's hairy gaze. Angela did not speak, and silently changed the data in Peter's spider battlesuit hidden in his clothes. "We have to go to the amusement park, so I won't bother you. Thank you for the hospitality." After leaving a few surprises in Peter's spider battlesuit, Angela jumped out of the chair and pulled O'Reilly to leave. "Hey. Wait, you two are outside too." Peter was halfway through, and suddenly remembered the oppression O'Reilly had brought to him, and Angela's experience of pulling her ankle to the ground. The word danger couldn't be said. So Peter Parker changed the subject decisively. "Do you have enough money to buy tickets? Tickets for amusement parks are not cheap. Brother gave us pocket money." The person who answered him was O'Reilly. She saw her talking while reaching into the big pocket on the abdomen of her bib, and then she grabbed a handful of colorful banknotes, mostly 100 yuan face value. Peter glanced at. Wealthy than him. Yes, Kraft bought an apartment and gave it to Aunt May, so he would naturally not treat his sister badly. Peter, who thought of this in hindsight, subconsciously covered his heart, feeling a little hurt. All the cash in my body is actually not as much as a little girl's pocket money. This makes Peter Parker more determined to find time to make some money. Mary Jane on the other side is not as complicated as Peter. She is just worried that it might be dangerous to let these two little girls run around with a lot of money. So she took the initiative to speak, "Or I will accompany you to the amusement park." As a reporter who collects news everywhere, Mary Jane's job is relatively free, and spending half a day with her children is not a big deal. Angela didn't refuse. Anyway, her main task was to look at O'Reilly. It didn't matter if she had one more person and one less person. As for O'Reilly, who likes lively activities, it is even more welcome. Seeing this situation, Peter Parker hesitated to say something. He still wanted to continue the date, but after hesitation for a while, he finally didn't say much. Although this date did not go on as he planned, Peter's two main goals, handing over the mask to Mary Jane, and regaining friendship with Mary Jane, have been achieved. Then he can end it. Except. Besides, Peter still has superhero work to do, and he couldn't stay with Mary Jane for too long. In addition, He plans to go to Dr. Otto's laboratory to see if it is true that Norman Osborn intends to use improper means to seize Dr. Otto's research results, and did the doctor really run away first? On the roof of a building not far from Burger King, Peter has changed into a spider battlesuit. Since his crime detection system did not find any new cases, Peter decided to go to Dr. Otto's laboratory first. Leaping down from the top of the building, Peter, as usual, threw cobweb out of the building on the side. However, the cobweb that was like a sharp arrow in my memory did not appear. Instead, a huge amount of spider web was opened in front of Peter's eyes, and Peter, who jumped out from the top of the building, slammed his head on it. What happened? Peter, who was covered by his cobwebs, had a dumbfounded look. He clearly checked web shooters, and the mode has not changed. Peter, who was falling, quickly switched the launch mode, and shook his arm again. As a result, another cobweb opened, and Peter's face was blurred again. Could it be that the transmitter is broken? Although you can't die if you fall at this height, you will still get some injuries, and it will definitely hurt. Peter unwillingly pressed the launcher twice. After the third net appeared, the fourth cobweb was finally launched normally. Peter was about to fall to the ground and hung himself in the air. Middle. Roar. So risky. Peter wiped his cold sweat secretly, but fortunately, web shooters suddenly returned to normal. Ah. It's Spider-Man. What's wrong with him? Is he fighting with someone? What's the matter with him? Take pictures. I want to post to Twitter to increase my fans. There was a lot of noise from below, making Peter's heart embarrassed. Damn it. Shameful. It's impossible for a Spider-Man wrapped in a spider web and hung in the air to be unobtrusive. Mary Jane, who hadn't gone far, naturally noticed the movement here. She didn't come to join in the fun, just secretly wondering in her heart. What the hell is Peter doing? However, after discovering that Peter seemed to have managed to get out of the predicament, Mary Jane stopped paying attention to that side. She just took out her mobile phone and sent a message to ask about it, and then led Angela and Aurelie to the nearest amusement park. After clearing the cobwebs on his body, Peter also successfully got rid of the onlookers. He simply responded to Mary's inquiry and tested that web shooters was really okay before continuing to Dr. Otto's laboratory. Rush away. In the middle of the web shooters, nothing went wrong. Peter rushed to the vicinity of the laboratory smoothly, and changed his clothes in the old place. Taking out the magnetic card and opening the door of the laboratory, Peter walked in. As Kraft said, it was empty and everything was evacuated. Damn. How did Dr. Otto do it? If it is small equipment such as some materials in personal computers, there are still many large equipment in the laboratory that are not so easy to carry. For one day, Peter didn't even think that he could finish the move. Is it Kraft again? Peter suddenly thought of Kraft's weird pistol that can make a portal. If you use that equipment, it's not impossible. Only, why did Kraft help Dr. Otto pit Mr. Osborn? It's not that Peter is complaining about Norman Osborn. Although he and Harry are good friends, he doesn't agree with his father. In addition, according to Kraft, it was originally Norman Osborn who wanted to pit Dr. Otto in front, so although Peter felt that doing so was against the spirit of the contract, he did not think that Dr. Otto had done too much. He was purely curious. This sudden Kraft appeared to be familiar with several of his elders, but he had never heard of this person's existence. What happened here? Just as Peter Parker was lost in thought, Norman Osborn walked in with the staff of the funding committee. Osborn, who was originally full of ambition, planned to see the wonderful expression on his old friend Dr. Otto's face. After seeing the looted laboratory, his expression suddenly became wonderful. Mr. Osborn. After recovering, Peter called Roar. Looking at the other person's staffing, he knew that Kraft was telling the truth. Norman Osborn at the moment also ignored the greetings with Peter. He suppressed his anger and stared at Peter and asked, "Peter, I think I need an explanation." "Sorry, Mr. Osborn," Peter shook his head. "I just arrived here too. You can check the entry and exit records at the door, so I don't know what happened here. Is there anything wrong with you here?" Norman Osborn squinted his eyes. He scanned the empty laboratory and laughed angrily. Otto's experiment has always failed to comply with the signed safety regulations. I originally intended to help him change to a safer one. Researching the environment, now it seems that he has discovered the clues and fears the crime and escapes. First, you have become smarter, Otto. After gritted his teeth and said these words, Norman Osborn was in no mood to reminisce with Peter Parker. He simply nodded at Peter, turned and left. Peter stayed in the laboratory for a while before remembering to take out his mobile phone to call Dr. Otto. However, there was a busy tone from the mobile phone. It was obvious that Dr. Otto had cut off all contact information on his own initiative. Dr. Otto. And Kraft. What do you want to do? Just when Peter Parker was in distress because of Dr. Otto, Mary Jane also had a problem. In fact, it's not really complicated, it's just that Angela and O'Reilly are not tall enough, so they can't ride the most exciting roller coaster in the amusement park. This is just a very common little thing in amusement parks. The staff of the amusement park can meet several times or even a dozen times a week, so they are quite experienced in dealing with such children. Although your height does not allow you to play this roller coaster, we also have a fairy tale train specifically for children. The staff took out a picture album in a familiar way, turned to the page with the fairy tale train illustration, and introduced to O'Reilly, who was making noise. Why don't the little sister try this? There are small gifts on the fairy tale train. I have already played this. O'Reilly glanced at the picture album in the staff's hands, and continued to swing his arms like a duck, and made a fuss. I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this. And under her lead, some of the children who did not meet the standard also started to make noise. They don't necessarily really like roller coasters, they just think that O'Reilly is so persistent, it must be fun, so. I want to play too. The experienced staff will naturally not be embarrassed by this little scene. They use various small means to divert the attention of most unsteady children and lead them to other projects. The rest are like O'Reilly, the staff also have other ways. That's good, let's play a game. The staff clapped their palms, attracting the attention of the children who were still making noise. If you can get your head beyond this line without the help of any props, I will let you play this roller coaster. If you can't, then take the little gifts your sister gave you and play other projects, okay? The young lady who proposed this plan took out a cute little doll and shook it, pointing to another line above the safe height line and said. This line is specially drawn to discourage children like O'Reilly. It seems that they can jump to the height with hard work, but in fact it is calculated by their amusement park through rigorous calculations. This age-due-on children's jumping limit. Sure enough, the other kids tried a few times but failed. Most of them left here with little puppets unwillingly. Only a few of them were still unwilling to give up, but they didn't make any noise. Then it was O'Reilly's turn. She went under the scale and looked up at the line. Crack. O'Reilly squatted down with a grin, posing as a frog squatting. Then, drink. With a light kick on the ground with both legs, O'Reilly rushed into the sky like a rocket, disappearing in front of everyone in an instant. The people around were dumbfounded, and looked up at the blue sky, unable to speak for a long time. After more than 10 seconds, the people who had been tilting their necks saw a small black dot appearing above and quickly zooming in. Boom. After a loud noise, the gray-headed O'Reilly crawled out of the pit she had smashed out of. Correcting the glasses on the bridge of her nose, patted the dust on her body, O'Reilly walked to the front of the staff member and pulled the corner of her clothes. Can I play a roller coaster now? New York has not been peaceful recently. In other words, New York has never been peaceful. It's just that the recent events have had a much greater impact than the usual little jokes. Not long ago, the underground emperor of New York and the biggest gang leader in Hell's Kitchen, nicknamed Wilson Fisk, was finally arrested under the cooperation of the New York police and superhero Spider-Man. After Fisk was arrested, the underground forces in New York ushered in a major reshuffle, but with the efforts of Spider-Man, a good neighbor of New Yorkers, most New Yorkers were not affected too seriously. In fact, after Kraft learned about this, he scratched his head a little. When he first crossed into the last world, it seemed to have a similar plot. The time of his arrival happened to be after Jin and this unlucky ghost was caught, but the protagonist changed from Spider-Man to Daredevil. So, is this the regular node of this traversal? Although there is no scientific basis, Kraft couldn't help but think so. However, not long after Fisk was arrested, a new major incident occurred in New York. Norman Osborn, the head of the Osborn Group, who is not weaker than Iron Man Tony Stark in terms of property and technology, and the mayor of New York City, was exposed to the use of homeless people and overseas immigrants to conduct terrible human experiments, and also there are a large number of documents and video materials as evidence. In addition, there are some evidences that the underworld leader Wilson Fisk, who was arrested not long ago, was able to climb from an ordinary gangster to the underground emperor of New York step by step with the support of Norman Osborn. Location, and Fisk also participated in those human experiments. These revelations put Norman Osborn, the mayor of New York City, under pressure from huge amounts of public opinion. It was Martin Lee and Dr. Otto who stabbed the news to the media. But just that, it won't be a big blow to Norman Osborn, because in addition to the mayor of New York City, he is also the helm of the Osborn Group, and he has enough financial resources to survive this storm of public opinion. However, Martin Lee and Dr. Otto did not expect to take down Norman Osborn with this little trick. At the moment, Dr. Otto is starting to target Osborn's core industry with the financial support of Martin Lee. Various competing products. For the revenge of these two people, Kraft did not intend to intervene too much, he just provided a little technical and intelligence support, and did not continue to blend in. After all, it is Martin Lee in the parallel world, and Kraft has no position to assist him in revenge. Besides, he still has more important things to do. Kraft took Angela and Aurelie, who had caused a little disturbance in the amusement park a few days ago, to a building that was not unfamiliar to him. Although the details are slightly different, Kraft is really familiar with the skylight inlaid with strange symbols on the roof. Holy Place, New York, or you can call it Kamar Taj's New York office. When Kraft came to this world, but no Kamar Taj magician came to him, he subconsciously thought that this place was the same as the previous world, and there was no Kamar Taj. The intelligence that Angela checked from the internet only found information on the Shore Avengers who were looking for something in the West Sea, as well as some street heroes such as the League of Defenders. If it weren't for Angela and Aurelie was walking around, he happened to see Holy Place in New York, and Kraft planned to go to space to see if the two light spots on the Infinite Gems radar were coming from Time Gem. It's weird, since there is Kamar Taj in this world, why didn't Ancient One or Dr. Horseface, or other supreme magician, come to us? After making sure that the building in front of him was indeed the holy place of Kamar Taj, Kraft murmured in confusion. Probably from the future timeline. You saw your brother and you want to grab his time gem? Angela helped guess. It shouldn't be possible. That's a coincidence. Before that, Kraft asked Ancient One, the parallel world, or Dr. Horseface, if she could know her arrival in advance by observing the timeline. However, the answer given by Ancient One is no unless Kraft only watches the timeline after arriving in this world, can he see the various possibilities created by his arrival. Before he reaches these parallel worlds, yes. No new branches will be created. Unless Kraft arrived in the parallel world, he was originally in the same long river of time as the world he was in. Therefore, the supreme magician here is either unable to detect his arrival, or he is observing the long river of time when he arrives. As for the specific reason, just ask if you don't know. Kraft walked to the door of Holy Place in New York and kicked it aside. When he habitually kicked the door of Holy Place in New York, Kraft remembered that this is not the world he knew well, and he didn't have any acquaintances in Kamar Taj. It seemed impolite to do so. You have to know that you are here to discuss with the Supreme Magician, whether you can trade Time Gem to yourself. But now that everything has been done, there is no point in regretting, so Kraft quickly left the matter behind and swaggered into Holy Place in New York with his two younger sisters. The door was kicked open with such a big movement, it is naturally impossible not to attract the attention of the Kamar Taj magicians inside. As soon as Kraft's back foot stepped into the door, 3 magicians appeared in front of him. Standing on both sides are 2 magicians, one fat and one thin. The thin Kraft is not clear. The fat man is probably the king's homosexual. They are wearing Kamar Taj robes, which are basically the same as Kraft knows. The shape of the robe is the same. The leader in the middle is wearing a suit that Kraft is very familiar with, a blue tunic, an asymmetrical red magic floating cloak, and the artifact Eye of Agamotto hanging on his chest. In terms of style, it looks a bit like Wang Mian's assassin suit, except that the hood is changed to a cloak. This is the classic skin of Doctor Strange. The most important thing is that the other party is also a horseface. Who are you? Why trespass to Holy Place in New York? Doctor Strange did not let his guard down because of the age of the 3 Krafts. You must know that Holy Place in New York was casted by a spell. Ordinary people, let alone kicking in, will ignore it under the influence of the spell even if they pass by and see it. In addition, Holy Place also added protective spells. Even out-of-control cars and most thermal weapons can't cause any damage to it, let alone being kicked open by someone. Therefore, the opponent can ignore the spells of Holy Place and kick in. It is definitely not an ordinary bear kid. However, Kraft did not answer Doctor Strange's questioning, but murmured to himself with his chin on his back. It seems that I couldn't find out. It's because the old man Rick's skills are too strong, or Dr. Ma Lian's professional level is not enough. Kraft cast a weighed look at Stephen Strange. Seeing that the other party didn't answer his own question, but looked at him with a weird look at the high price of goods, Dr. Strange couldn't help but tighten his brows, and then used a detection spell. Then he was startled. That boy became a demon warlock at a young age, and the little girl with purple hair was even more terrifying, she was actually a demon. As for the little blonde girl, Although she was only tainted with a slight devilish breath, it seemed that there was no problem, but the information returned from the spell told Strange that the other party was not a human at all. Bold demon. How dare to take the initiative to appear in front of me? Dr. Strange yelled, his hands glowed with orange light, and he directly activated the magic. Dr. Strange's first magic was not to attack Kraft and the others, but to open a huge amounts of portal on the floor, sending all 6 people present to a desert with no one around. In addition to not wanting to cause damage to Holy Place in New York in the fight, it is also to prevent the demons in front of them from attacking ordinary people. You must know that many demons can increase their strength by drawing human souls. Whether it is at the protection level or the tactical level, keeping them away from the crowd is a must. Although the relationship between Kraft and Ancient One is very familiar, he hasn't really fought with the magician seriously. Seeing the other party's tricky teleportation skills, Kraft is really envious of his real name. Father Rick's portal gun is still a bit worse in terms of triggering speed. With a sigh in his heart, Kraft changed his one-click outfit and put on the dream armor of the animal god General's skin. The strange appearance directly confirmed Strange's guess. Guidance magic gravity wave. Kraft raised his hand as an AoE, directly pressing the 2 other than Strange to the ground. Strange was also uncomfortable. Although he could barely support the gravity with the magical floating cloak, his body was also sinking into quicksand, and it took a lot of effort to raise his arm. But soon, a burst of yellow light appeared on Strange, and the gravity wave that Kraft applied to him was dissipated. The other 2 magicians also used the same method to break free from gravity and climbed from the ground up. Immediately afterwards, an orange magic circle appeared on both of their hands, from which shot a light bomb attacking Kraft. Kraft's fingers also lit up with bright yellow light, and threw out energy bombs to intercept the opponent's light bombs one by one. This is not the ability of the Dream Battlesuit, but the power of the Iron Fist that Kraft got in the previous world, or the power of the dragon. Probably because he has not practiced martial arts, the power of Kraft's Iron Fist is not that strong, but its maneuverability far exceeds that of previous Iron Fists. Kraft can even use the power of an Iron Fist to make a gun that is so delicate that every screw is not bad. It can really shoot even if you put in a bullet, but it doesn't make much sense to do so, and the power is not as powerful as Kraft. An energy bomb formed with the power of an Iron Fist. However, it is a pity that when the power of Iron Fist is used to make the props in the dream world, there will be unacceptable conditions, and the blessing of the power of dream power will disappear inexplicably. But there is no problem using the power of Iron Fist to simulate Stark's arc reactor. The consumption of palladium or new elements is indispensable. It's just that it doesn't make much sense to do so. Kraft's dream technology is much better than the arc reactor. The only thing that is more beneficial to Kraft is that the power of the Iron Fist greatly enhances Kraft's own physical fitness, especially his reaction ability, which is much better than before. In a battle like this, he basically does not need Angela. The support can also cope with it. Although the way of presentation and ability are very different, Strange still noticed that Kraft's power seemed familiar, and it was not the so-called demon power. Just when he wanted to identify it carefully, he found that Kraft's body was filled with red and black smoke, and behind him, he quickly formed the appearance of a little girl with huge amounts of. Ha 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 ha. It's Aurelie. Aurelie yelled cheerfully when she saw her appearance appear behind her brother. When using the gravity wave to suppress Strange, Kraft could actually take the opportunity to speak, but he wanted to test the 2 abilities of Iron Fist and Hell that he had recently obtained. Without saying a word. The power of Hell in this world was mobilized much smoother than in the previous world, so Kraft tried to activate a necessary skill for all demon warlocks summon demon projection. If there is Ancient One, it is naturally to use Ancient One's various spells to have a civil war with Dr. Strange, but now Kraft only has Aurelie beside him, so he can only use the trick of summoning the demon projection. Drink. Kraft controlled the Aurelie projection and threw out his fists. The huge amounts of red and black fists smashed towards Strange in an overwhelming manner. Regardless of the magnitude of this punch, it is actually not very powerful. Just like the power of the Iron Fist cannot simulate the dream technology, Aurelie's unscientific power is put into the magic of the demon projection, and it also becomes unintelligible. Therefore, in terms of the power of this punch, it is actually almost the same as Kraft's most powerful punch with the dream armor. Even so, the power of this punch should not be underestimated. Strange and the 2 Kamar Taj magicians worked together to prop up a defensive magic, and resisted the punch of Aurelie projection. After a stalemate for 2 or 3 seconds, the 2 broke apart at the same time, hitting them indiscriminately. Win or lose. Sure enough. Aureli's demon power is almost meaningless. Kraft, who can't learn magic, can't use any kind of demon spells other than borrowing demon power and summoning demon projection, so borrowing from Aureli has become very tasteless. Let's continue to test the power of the Iron Fist. Kraft switched back to the power of the Iron Fist again, his hands glowing with bright yellow light. According to Shou Lao, the power of the Iron Fist is the power of the mind, and Kraft's curiosity and research on things give his Iron Fist a fine control power that is different from that of previous Iron Fists. But on the contrary, the power of his Iron Fist is also greatly reduced, and the Iron Fist that can be driven is not much. It is almost the limit to be able to make a small pistol. But this is not a difficult problem for Kraft, because he also has a level universe treasure called Mind Gem, which can greatly increase the power of the Iron Fist. I just tried a small knife against Dr. Strange and their light bombs, and the effect is not bad, so next. A lot of light burst from Kraft's hands, once again forming the appearance of a little girl behind him. The Angela used by Kraft this time has just been shown by Aureli, so Angela naturally cannot be forgotten. And Kraft's operation obviously made Angela very happy. She yelled with her hands together in her mouth, "Come on, brother, beat that horse in the face." Aureli also gathered up the excitement, did not know where he took out 2 small red flags, waved them, and shouted slogans rhythmically. Come on, brother, come on, drink." It was also a punch, and the punch with the Mind Gem bonus was much stronger than the demon projection that was banned from the power of the dream. Strange also felt the difference between the 2 punches, and quickly used the teleport spell to avoid the other 2 magicians. Boom. Huge amounts of a fist hit the sand, splashed a large amount of yellow sand, raised a lot of smoke and dust, and suddenly reduced the visibility around it. Strange, who had sent away the 2 magicians, took this opportunity to launch a sneak attack from behind Kraft's side. At the same time, his illusion on the front also launched an attack, trying to attract Kraft's attention. Force. Angela, who was shaped with the power of an Iron Fist, grabbed the backhand and caught Strange, who wanted to sneak attack, in her hand. For Kraft, who had installed various radars in the Dreamland armor, this kind of obscuration of sight and the deceptive means of creating illusions were of no significance at all. After catching Strange, Iron Fist Angela turned into golden ropes and tied Dr. Strange tightly. When Kraft stretched out his hand to pick the eye of Agamotto on Dr. Strange's chest, the scene in front of him suddenly changed, the sky of smoke disappeared, and Dr. Strange also broke away from the shackles of the Iron Fist and appeared intact. In front of him. Behind Kraft, huge amounts of golden Angela stood there, and Aureli's cheerful cheering sound came from his ears. Come on, brother. Whoops. Kraft, who has 5 infinite gems on his body, under the dual blessing of Mind Gem and Soul Gem, his thoughts will not fall into the time loop created by Time Gem. So before Aureli and Angela realized something was wrong, or the first time the scene changed, Kraft understood what Strange did. Although Kraft had not personally experienced Time Gem's operation before, Ancient One specially introduced him to this fighting method after knowing that he was going to collect Time Gem in other parallel worlds. As for the solution, no, unless you grab the Time Gem before the opponent starts the time loop, you will have to smash it down to see who can't hold it first, or use the portal to run away. This is why the 2 magicians who were sent away by Strange did not appear here. The scope of the Time Gem is also limited. As long as it breaks away from the spatial scope where it establishes the space-time cycle, it will not be forcibly backtracked, but this also eliminates Kraft's hope of seizing the Time Gem. Wait. I didn't mean to come to grab Time Gem. Kraft, who suddenly recollected it, dispersed the huge amounts of Angela behind him, and then opened his palm to Strange, who was not far away. Guidance magic and anti-magic realm. Although he doesn't plan to grab, Kraft still wants to try if he can beat Time Gem's undefeated tactic. Dr. Strange, shrouded in red light, only felt his body sink. The magic floating cloak behind him suddenly lost its vitality, and he fell directly from midair. Thanks to the softer sand underneath, Strange was a little embarrassed by the fall, but he did not suffer any harm. But Strange at the moment's heart was a stormy sea. The magical floating cloak that originally had a little self-consciousness not only lost the ability of flight, but also slumped on his shoulders like a dead thing. No matter what he called roar, he didn't respond. What made Strange even more disturbed was that he had silently cast several spells, but none of them worked. Forbidden magic. Strange, who knew what happened to him, stretched the horse's face longer. The guy with the ability of Forbidden Demon is born to be the nemesis of magician, but this kind of existence is rare. Strange has only seen the introduction in Kamar Taj's collection. The demon warlock in front of him is his first time. Encounter an opponent with the ability of forbidden magic. In desperation, Strange could only trigger the time loop previously set with time gem again. A faint green light flashed, Strange returned to midair, the magic floating cloak and mana also returned, and also the huge Angela behind Kraft. Come on. Whoops. Alalay, who experienced the time cycle for the second time, also noticed that something was wrong faster. She scratched her head with a dazed expression before she could understand the situation, and then continued to wave the small flag vigorously. Roar. Fortunately, Strange also breathed a sigh of relief. If even time gem spells were banned, he could only use Kamar Taj's secret fighting skills. However, it was precisely because of Kraft's appearance that Strange was shocked to see how prescient Kamar Taj's martial arts magician training method is. Hey. Isn't it useful for time gem? After leaving Angela the big one again, Kraft smacked his lips helplessly. He actually expected this situation. After all, infinite gems are level universe treasures, and it is normal to be special. But my guiding force magic is also driven by infinite gems, which will cause some impact anyway. I don't know whether Kraft's way of driving infinite gems is not as direct as Strange, or he has less control over gems than Dr. Strange. It also uses infinite gems ability, which actually failed to have any effect on the time cycle. Make Kraft a little unconvinced. If you have any means, just use it. Dr. Strange, who relied on time gem to drag Kraft into the tug of war, began to take the initiative. Kraft squinted his eyes, stretched his hand to the sky, and made a downward motion. Guidance magic and meteorite fall. A flaming meteorite dragged a long tail flame across the sky, and Roar whistled at Strange. FXXK. Faced with this kind of nonsense attack, Strange didn't even have the thought of trying to fight, and directly activated the time loop. The meteorite that was about to fall on Strange's head was erased out of thin air, but two more figures appeared beside him. Huge amounts of the little girl appeared behind Kraft again, but this time it was a red and black Aurelie projection. Ha 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 ha. It's Aurelie. Whoops. The words from the demon's body also changed. Strange's eyes widened, and there was a problem with his time loop. Seeing that the demon warlock was the same as before, controlling the demon projection to hit him with a punch, Strange didn't care about propping up the shield with the two, but started the time loop again. The scene in front of him changed again. The demon projection behind Kraft disappeared. He was opening his palm and sending out a gravitational wave toward this side. Strange, who felt the presence of gravity again, was even more horrified, because he found that the two magician colleagues around him, at the moment, had become very old-fashioned. Those who play with time will surely be backlashed by time. Strange suddenly recalled the sentence written by someone on the title page of the magic book that recorded how to use Eye of Agamotto. This stopped him from wanting to continue triggering the time loop. Strange gritted his teeth, his hands flashed with orange light, and wanted to use teleportation magic to escape from here, and then look for a solution. However, a desperate red light shone, and the orange light in his hand dimmed in an instant. Damn it. Strange then remembered that the other party still had the means to forbid demons. But Dr. Strange didn't intend to just sit and wait for death. He put on the Kamar Taj fighting technique, and planned to fight to the death. However, compared with his extraordinary magical ability, Strange's fighting technique is very ridiculous, and because his magical ability is too good, he not only did not put much effort in the fighting technique, he has not done it a few times. In actual combat, even the internal discussions within Kamar Taj are rarely involved. So Strange's fate is easy to guess. Even if Kraft doesn't wear a battlesuit or uses his iron fist, he can solve the battle within 10 rounds. After putting on the battlesuit, he flips over and suppresses Dr. Strange, who has lost his magical power. The rope formed by the power of the iron fist tied Strange into a zongzi, and Kraft reached out his hand and took off the Eye of Agamotto, which was used as the decorative buckle of the magic floating cloak on his chest. When Kraft extended his hand to the Eye of Agamotto, Strange actually wanted to start the time loop again, but after he looked at the two old men who were not far away, he hesitation. He is worried that if he continues to use time gem, something more terrifying will happen. In the short time of Strange's hesitation, Kraft had already removed the Eye of Agamotto. Those who play with time will surely be backlashed by time. You have also seen the end of my companion. I advise you not to try to control the Eye of Agamotto lightly. Now that Strange wanted to activate the time loop, he couldn't do it. He could only make the last struggle and persuaded him. In addition, he pinned his hopes on the protection ability of Eye of Agamotto. The main purpose of Eye of Agamotto is to prevent the time gem from falling into the hands of malicious people, and the function that controls the time gem is second. Kraft, who knew this for a long time, didn't even try to open the Eye of Agamotto after putting away the dream battlesuit, but tossed it in his hand. He doesn't know any serious magic, and wants to open the Eye of Agamotto, so he can only let Rayleigh hard. It's just that I'm tearing my face with Strange, and Kraft isn't such an unreasonable person. But before that, Kraft has to be proud of it. Ha 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 ha. Your time recycle trick is so ridiculous, I haven't cracked it. Kraft looked up to the sky with a long smile, and then dispelled the illusion of reality gem. The so-called time gem problems are actually fake. Those scenes are all illusions created by Kraft using reality gem. Although Kraft didn't know the words on the title page, when he first made the time machine, Ancient One always reminded him not to play with time easily, so he guessed that Strange had received similar warnings. Then he tried it with reality gem, but he didn't expect the plan to go smoothly. After the desperation, Kraft let go of Strange and threw the Eye of Agamotto back to him. Don't worry, for the face of Teacher Ancient One, I didn't intend to grab your time gem, but want to make a deal with you. Teacher Ancient One. Who are you anyway? Strange, who was already confused, was even more confused after hearing this familiar name. After signing a contract with Ancient One, although Kraft still can't learn Kamar Taj's spells, he is still a student of Ancient One. The most important thing is that Grandma will always be beaten if she calls her. After clarifying his origin with Strange, Kraft made a request to trade time gem. But unfortunately, Strange refused. Even if Kraft offered to exchange other gems for him, he did not agree. The reason Strange gave was that Eye of Agamotto is a holy artifact passed down from generation to generation by Kamar Taj and cannot be traded. Kraft is also very helpless. You, an American, actually told me about inheritance. After the transaction failed, Kraft didn't entangle with his face. Anyway, there are so many parallel worlds. It's a big deal to find a world where time gem has been snatched by Thanos, and then grab that thing. After chatting with Strange for a while, Kraft also left. For one thing, he was originally not very familiar with Dr. Strange, so there was nothing particularly good to talk to between the two. Secondly, without saying goodbye, New York Holy Place will be demolished by Rayleigh. In a place like this with a bunch of magic props, how could Rayleigh's interest be low, and when her interest is high, her actions will be a bit light and insignificant. So Kraft ran away with his two younger sisters before Strange went crazy. Anyway, the other party has time gem, so it shouldn't take much effort to repair. After leaving Holy Place in New York, Kraft took his two younger sisters and wandered on the streets of New York. Due to the revelations of Martin Lee and Dr. Otto, the streets and lanes of New York City are now full of marchers, as well as criminals who fish and smash and rob in troubled waters. In addition to Peter Parker, who was swinging around on the cobweb, Kraft also saw Daredevil and other defenders trying their best to maintain peace in New York. You know that superheroes like Daredevil rarely show up during the day. It should be said that apart from the official Avengers, Spider-Man also has the highest sense of existence. This is one of the reasons why Clarion Daily is chasing him every day. Otherwise, there are so many masked superheroes. YJ. Jonah James only caught Spider-Man to report, not because of other reports. An unofficial superhero with relatively low sales. However, no matter how chaotic New York City was, it did not affect the lives of the wealthy. All the chaos took place in relatively backward neighborhoods. Occasionally, people intruded into the rich districts indifferently, without the use of police. Those rich people spent their own money. The security guards who paid the money will send them to see God. And those shops that hold $0 shopping activities are mostly supermarkets, convenience stores, etc. The only special thing is probably the jewelry store. There is no way. For those who participate in $0 purchases, jewelry and other things are probably the most valuable commodity they can think of, and the protection measures are not as tight as banks. It is simply low risk and high return model. So Kraft took his two sisters to see the movie, ate a Michelin meal, and visited the science and technology exhibition of Roxxon. There was no unexpected incident in the middle, and everyone around was also very concerned about what is happening in New York. He looked completely indifferent. Sure enough, even if you change to a parallel world, America is still America. This is not the first time Kraft has seen such a scene. When the mutant riots and Stark launched the Ultron project, Kraft had already seen a situation similar to the current situation. From Roxxon's science and technology exhibition, the sky has begun to darken. Although it has not completely turned black, the streetlights on the street have also turned on early. Kraft called out the nano glasses and searched the internet to find out where to go for dinner. The Michelin restaurant that I went to at noon tasted okay, but the amount was too small. Kraft ordered another meal to fill his stomach, so this time he planned to find a restaurant with ample amount. As he browsed the ratings of various restaurants in New York, a white man in a suit and leather shoes walked toward him. Kraft thought that the other party was just passing by, so he ignored it and continued to browse the webpage until he walked in front of him and stopped. "Hello?" Raising his eyebrows suspiciously, Kraft nodded behind his ear and put the nano glasses back away. He didn't bother to cover up when he was in a parallel world. The man in the suit and leather shoes glanced at Kraft's ear, but did not show any surprised expression. Then he quickly met Kraft's gaze again, and asked in a calm voice, "Hello, Kraft. Mr. Lee. This performance. Kraft is familiar. SHIELD, or Hydra?" After hearing Kraft's question, the man who had always acted calmly couldn't help being shocked. His pupils shook violently. However, what shocked him even more was that the little blonde girl next to her spoke. "His name is Phil Coulson, so it should not be Hydra." This time it was Kraft's turn to shake his pupils. He stared at the meticulously combed hair on the top of the opponent's head with wide eyes, and took a slight step back. Phil Coulson's hairline is so normal. Although the same person who knows the parallel world may be different in appearance, the difference is too big. I take the liberty to ask, "What is your age?" Phil Coulson, who was baffled by Kraft's reaction, thought for a while, and answered honestly, "I am 32 this year, is there any problem?" Angela. The other Phil Coulson can't remember how old Kraft is. 8 years younger than the other. Oh. Kraft knew that he hadn't reached his age yet, so he glanced at Phil Coulson's head again and reached out and patted him on the shoulder. "Cherish it, their days are running out." "What?" Phil Coulson was completely confused and didn't know what the other party was saying. The reason why SHIELD will stare at Kraft is also very simple. It is because of O'Reilly's sudden jump in the amusement park a few days ago. At first SHIELD just thought that O'Reilly, like some superhero, was a lucky person who had obtained magical ability inadvertently, but after careful investigation, they discovered that these three people appeared out of thin air. No relevant information can be found. It can't be said that they can't find anything at all. The database still has their identity information, but the information can't stand scrutiny at all and it's forged at first glance. What descendants of the royal family who lived in North America in the Tang dynasty? Isn't it a trouble? At that time, in addition to the Indians who are now dying in North America, where did the human society leave them? This kind of disinterested disguise, obviously the other party doesn't care if he is found out. In addition, the other party seemed to have a good relationship with the Spider-Man family, so SHIELD wanted to get in touch with Kraft first. In fact, if things on the West Coast hadn't caught them in the Avengers, causing serious shortage of manpower here, SHIELD would not have been delayed until now to come in contact with Kraft. Although he was messed up by Kraft's inexplicable behavior, Phil Coulson is also an experienced veteran. He quickly adjusted his emotions and returned his attention to his task. "You don't need to be too nervous. Our SHIELD is not malicious to your brothers and sisters. Now that you know SHIELD and Hydra, you should know our position and responsibilities even more." "Well, I know," Kraft nodded flatly, "but I don't want to deal with you either." Without waiting for Phil Coulson to unfold his trained speech skills and continue to obtain information from himself, Kraft cut off all his careful thoughts directly. "I don't like your SHIELD's way of doing things, and I don't like being caught by a group of agents. Staring every day, I don't like the bald head of your chief, so we'd better keep the water in the water." Kraft refused to be so clear. Phil Coulson couldn't use it even if he had the best words. The SHIELD definitely would not ignore Kraft just because of such words, but it is obviously temporary to continue to communicate. It doesn't work anymore. So Phil Coulson opened his mouth and vomited out after a long while. "Chief Fury is not bald." Kraft. Although the appearance of Phil Coulson and Nick Fury surprised Kraft, his opinion of SHIELD remained unchanged, so after rejecting Phil Coulson, he left with Angela and O'Reilly. And Phil Coulson did not entangle too much. After Kraft left, he also returned to SHIELD's stronghold in New York and reported the situation at the time of contact to Nick Fury. What action SHIELD will take afterwards is not what Kraft cares about. He continued to take two robot sisters to play crazy outside for more than 10 days, and it is not limited to New York, but to other places in America, for a moment. One thing to say is that there is not much difference between the two parallel worlds of America in terms of play. Kraft and Angela are not novel, and the main thing is to make O'Reilly have fun. After playing for a while, Kraft and the others returned to New York. The second step of Martin Lee and Dr. Otto's revenge, at the moment, has already spread. Since it was all too slow to start from scratch, Martin and Otto couldn't wait, and were worried about the long nights, so while developing products for the Osborne Group, they only looked for partners. Then Dr. Otto passed through his contacts and found Pioneer Technology. The two of them became the heads of Pioneer Technology's New York branch through capital and technology investment. As soon as the two took office, they started all the production lines under their control and began to snipe the products of the Osborne Group. At the moment when Osborne was exposed to the scandal, Martin and Otto's precise blow allowed Pioneer Technology's products to seize the Osborne Group's market at an extremely fast rate. And when the behemoth Osborne had a wound, the sharks who smelled blood naturally joined the carnival of eating Osborne. Now, even if Norman Osborne is the mayor of New York, it is of little use. His official enemies have also taken shots, and many alliances have even started to stabbing them in the back. Therefore, in just over 2 weeks, the Osborne Group's stock fell again and again, and the industries under its name were also hit from various quarters. Although it has not yet reached the point of bankruptcy, as long as it is a person of normal intelligence, it can be seen that the Osborne Group is going to die sooner or later. On the other hand, Peter Parker and Mary Jane, who had already reunited, also found Osborne's home step by step through the news that Dr. Otto and the others broke, and learned about GR27, which is the breath of the devil. The purpose is to treat Harry's mother's genetic disease. They also knew that Harry Osborne didn't really go to study in Europe, but was arranged by his father to treat the same disease as his mother. Even so, Mr. Osborne shouldn't use such a method. If Harry knew that his illness would be treated by such a method, he would never agree to it. Peter looked at the contents of Harry Osborne's diary and sighed sadly. Peter doesn't agree with Norman Osborne's approach, but after knowing that his friend has died soon and is now receiving treatment from the Osborne Group, he doesn't know how to deal with this problem for a while. If he continues to investigate and bring Norman Osborne to justice, then Harry is likely to lose his life, but if Osborne is allowed to continue with impunity, Peter's sense of responsibility as a superhero makes him unable to convince himself. Confused, Peter plans to talk to Aunt May and see if he can get a hint from her. Then he ran into Kraft and the others who happened to be back. Ha ha ha. It's Peter the coward. Hearing O'Reilly calling himself a coward as always, Peter showed a bit of an apple, only to find that there was a bug-like expression in the apple. He had heard from Mary Jane about O'Reilly's shocking jump in the amusement park, and further confirmed that the other party, like Angela, was not an ordinary little girl. But because he felt too keen and was dubbed the name of a coward, Peter Parker was very unconvinced. If he knew in advance that O'Reilly was very strong, he would not be scared by her vain shot. Well, he still hasn't seen the true power of O'Reilly's punch, so he is so confident. If he, like another Peter, watched O'Reilly smash himself to the ground with a fist, and then smash an island into a small archipelago, he would not be so confident. O'Reilly. How about let's discuss something? Peter Parker didn't rush to find Aunt May to enlighten him, but squatted down in front of O'Reilly, held her shoulders and talked with her about the conditions. Can you stop calling me a coward in the future? Oh. But you were a coward, I was so scared last time, ha 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 ha. O'Reilly said and said, he was happy. Peter looked at O'Reilly and laughed self-consciously, his expression was ugly as if he took a bite of an apple, and found that only half of the bugs were left inside. Then if I am no longer scared by you, can I stop calling me a coward? Probably thinking of the terrible situation of his school days, Peter Parker is extremely persistent in calling the coward roar. Ouch. This kind of thinking logic that has to go around more than 2 turns is too difficult for O'Reilly. It's not that her intelligence is not enough, but her character just doesn't like to think about such complicated problems. Generally, when O'Reilly encounters this situation, her choice is play stupid. Ha 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 ha. No, what are you laughing at? Seeing O'Reilly start to laugh again inexplicably, Peter Parker is stupid. Your trouser chain is open. O'Reilly pointed to Peter's crotch and said. What? Peter lowered his head in a panic, only to find that his trouser chain was pulled up properly, and it hadn't opened at all. Ha 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 ha. Seeing Peter being deceived, O'Reilly smiled even more happily. And O'Reilly followed her own code of conduct all the time, as well as the precepts and deeds taught by her brother Kraft. Just run away if you get into trouble. When Peter lowered his head, O'Reilly had already stepped away from his short legs. You stopped me. At this time, Peter had completely forgotten his purpose of coming to the asylum, suffocating the fire, and chased O'Reilly. It's just that his behavior will only make O'Reilly happier. Ha 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 ha. Catch me. But fortunately, Aunt May, who heard the movement, appeared in time and stopped Peter Parker, who had been slipping around by O'Reilly. What do you care about with a little girl? Aunt May poked Peter Parker in the head with hatred for iron and steel. Even if he is not a Spider-Man, this kind of performance is really shameful. It was then that Peter realized what he had just done. He stood there in embarrassment and shame, letting Aunt May scold and preach. After Aunt May said that she was tired, Peter poured her a glass of water to please, and at the same time used a side tap to mention the difficulties he encountered to Aunt May. In Peter's mouth, he has a friend whose pet is seriously ill and is currently being treated with an illegal method, and Peter doesn't know whether he should report him or not. After listening to the story of Peter Parker, Aunt May has guessed what he really wants to ask. Because the problem with Kraft talking about Martin Lee before is that Angela also raised a mouth about Harry Osborn. Is there no other way to treat that pet except for your friend's illegal methods? Seeing that Peter didn't intend to say it explicitly, Aunt May also cooperated with him in a dumb puzzle. I remember that you also took courses in biology when you were in college. Why don't you try to save that pet by yourself? Use legal methods. Aunt May patted Peter on the shoulder and said earnestly, if you don't have confidence, you can also choose to ask for help from others. I think if your friend has a choice, he won't use this radical way to treat himself. Pets. Peter left the asylum with a solemn expression. Although he got a solution from Aunt May, he was still anxious, because it was very difficult to cure Harry in a short time. The reason why Aunt May was so simple was purely because she did not have the corresponding scientific knowledge, and she saw that Kraft easily solved Martin Lee's problem, which made a big mistake in this type of research. Sentenced. However, in the plan proposed by Aunt May, there is one point that Peter thinks should be implemented as soon as possible. That is to go to Norman Osborn to be frank and tell him to provide him with all the information related to the treatment of Harry. Peter Parker thought very well, but unfortunately, before he found Norman Osborn, the unscrupulous capitalist was ready to give it a go. How is the production of serum? On the highest floor of the Osborn building, Norman Osborn asked his men coldly. Because we have to hide our eyes and ears, the production capacity is slightly insufficient. The current inventory is only a little over 250,000. Enough is enough. After the plan is successful, we can expand production on the bright side. The initial inventory will be enough to bring Osborn back to life. Norman nodded, and his opponent ordered, however, private production still cannot be stopped. The more stock, the more room we can operate in the future. Let's start planning. Yes. The subordinate responded, turned and left Norman's office. Soon, on the top of the Empire State Building, a Gaia microbial spreading device produced by Osborn was placed in an inconspicuous corner. After pressing the time switch, the man quickly left here and disappeared into the night. The next day, a strange epidemic of huge amounts of suddenly appeared in New York City. A large number of citizens showed symptoms such as weakness, coughing up blood, and difficulty in sucking roar, which added another desperation to the chaotic New York. Color. It's just that despair is aimed at the poor. Although those who are rich can't completely cure this kind of disease they have never seen before, it is still no problem to hang their lives with modern medical methods. And those poor people can only rely on their own physical fitness to resist the past. I have to say it again, Norman Osborn in this world is really ruthless. After the spread of the Devil's Breath, Kraft, who had seen its experimental data a long time ago, immediately guessed the truth, and then asked Angela to check the recent developments of the Osborn group. Sure enough, they had already secretly produced antiviral serum. After things got worse, he jumped out to be the savior. In fact, Osborn's operation is not a novelty. The capitalists of all ages have long played with similar methods, and human lives are the least valuable thing to them. The premise of Norman Osborn's self-directed and self-acted performance must be that other people do not have the latest version of the experimental data of Devil's Breath. Norman Osborn has definitely guessed that the person who poked the human experiment was Dr. Otto, who suddenly disappeared, but in his cognition, Osborn's knowledge is only the earliest version of the information on the Devil's Breath. Now that so many years have passed, although the names used are still the same, in fact the two Devil's Breaths are almost irrelevant. That's why Norman Osborn dared to give it a go and play such a drama of poisoning and selling drugs. But unfortunately, although Norman guessed the identity of Dr. Otto, he didn't know the existence of Kraft, let alone all the information about the Devil's Breath that had already fallen into Dr. Otto's hands. When Martin Lee and Dr. Otto broke the news, they just didn't want to be horrified, so that Norman Osborn realized that they had all the information about the Devil's Breath, so the contents that came out were basically early experiments many years ago. Material. And they did this in anticipation that Norman Osborn would do something similar to the present when he had no choice. It's just that Martin and Otto didn't expect that Norman Osborn would be so impatient, and they resorted to this move early and took the initiative to accelerate the demise of the Osborne Group. As a result, Martin Lee and Dr. Otto quickly held a press conference in the name of Pioneer Technology. Since it is the first public appearance of the new head of Pioneer Technology's New York branch, even if the situation in New York is very chaotic now, many media still arrive on the scene. Norman Osborn, who has been attacked by pioneering technology recently, is naturally paying close attention to this conference. When Norman saw that familiar figure of Otto appeared at the press conference, he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. The development of the matter was also as he expected. After Martin and Otto made a simple introduction, they took the initiative to expose the identity of the researchers who had been the devil's breath in the victims, and claimed the identity of the person who broke the news. Identity. Then Otto came up with new information to confirm that the sudden epidemic now comes from the devil's breath that the Osborne Group has been studying. After the initial revelation failed, we knew that this alone would not be able to bring down Osborne, so while we cooperated with Pioneer Technology, we continued to investigate everything related to the devil's breath. We wanted to collect enough evidence to Norman Osborn brought to justice. Martin Lee, who is better at speaking, talked on stage, and showed a sad emotion on his face. It's just that we didn't expect Osborn to be so frantic and do such a dehumanizing thing. After a pause, letting the people in the audience and in front of the TV brew for a while, Martin Lee continued. After discovering that this disaster came from the breath of the devil, we tried our best. Under the leadership of the doctor, I worked overtime to research out the therapeutic agents, but time is running out and we have no time for mass production. Therefore, after discussing with Dr. Otto, I decided to disclose the formula of the medicine. I hope all companies with ability can step up. Produce antidote to reduce casualties as much as possible. After speaking, Dr. Otto uploaded the formula of Devil's Breath antidote to Pioneer Technology's official website in front of everyone, and then projected it on the big screen behind him. It's over. The hands and feet of Norman Osborn in front of the TV were cold, and Dr. Otto and Martin Lee's hands directly vanished his plan to bring the Osborne Group back to life through antidote. Without Pioneer Technology's sniping during this period and other companies' downfalls, the Osborne Group would still have ability to control a part of the media to turn black and white in front of the public, or even hit it backwards. Just like when the Devil's Breath was revealed for the first time before, although it was hurt, it would never hurt the root. But now is different. The Osborne Group is already the big fat in the eyes of many capital companies, and they will not allow Osborne to continue to struggle. Norman Osborn gritted his teeth and made a quick decision. In carrying out this plan, Osborn had already considered the situation in case something was revealed, so he moved some important assets to other places early, and at the same time transferred Harry Osborn, who was soaked in the jar, to other more hidden places. The place. Seeing that the situation is not good now, Norman Osborn can only leave New York's property first and quickly escape from here. However, how could Otto and Martin not consider the possibility of Norman Osborn's escape? So they had already submitted evidence to the New York police before the press conference, and they had hired several other companies. Press conference, it's just for civilians. In fact, those big companies have already started producing therapeutic agents and sharing the big cake of the Osborne Group. So Norman Osborn was intercepted by the New York police before he could escape a few steps. Osborn. It's over. Kraft, who was watching all this, exclaimed. When Dr. Otto and Martin Lee had no intention of calculating, Norman Osborn was unable to respond properly.